Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Budget by the Numbers. And the reason why we can call ourselves Budget by the Numbers is because this is basically if you were watching by the numbers and Thorin barely watched any of the games and Richard never broke anything of substance in the journalism world. Welcome. And of course, I am joined by my co-host, the not esports historian, Vu. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I finally got a chance, right, to get out my feelings on this whole NIP situation.
Sure,
We're just like a week late, unfortunately. We're just like about a week late.
We are and we aren't, because as I was just saying before we went live, this has been one of the first sort of dramas, if you will, scandals that has spanned like basically an entire week, a running long 7 days or more since it first happened. And it's only now fading from history, which is a perfect time, maybe not the literal perfect time, but a time for us to jump onto it. So obviously, speaking of being budget by the numbers, they had a show recently, just yesterday, and you said that from what you had seen, they basically said everything you wanted to say, but let's pretend like By the Numbers doesn't exist, because I've got to wait a whole week to watch it because I didn't catch it live. So why don't you go for it and give us your thoughts on the NIP versus Anonymo rematch, replay the whole tournament because you forgot your rule set, Flashpoint.
All right, so I'm going to come in with the hottest of hot takes.
Here we go.
I think there is a universe in which Flashpoint did nothing wrong.
Okay.
And I think it could literally be this universe. I think we may be residing in a universe where Flashpoint has taken all of the heat for something that I think it's very possible it's actually all the way out of their hands. Because, okay, so if we look at some of the information that's being given out, Monte Cristo said that there was a lack of communication and there was some misunderstanding as to whether a VPN actually fixed the issue for NIP. And if a VPN fixes the issue, by the way, that means it was a routing issue. That's what it means, okay? So if they say, hey, a VPN fixed the issue, that means it's not Face's problem. And I'm a little bit uneasy about the rule where it's like, yeah, by the way, if your connection's fucked and it's because of your internet provider, then you're fucked. Like, I'm a little bit uneasy about that. I feel like there could be more concessions made to try and fix that type of thing. But as long as that's the rule, and most tournaments seem to be running that rule from as far as I understand, I haven't looked up their rule books. As long as that's standard operating procedure, then what it comes down to is the communication from NIP, the players, to Flashpoint, the tournament, was likely very poor. And you can see it as evidenced by the fact that Device afterwards, hold on, I want to get this because I want to be word for word correct in the way I'm going to quote Device, being inconsistent in his retelling afterwards. Okay, so one tweet, May 14th, all 3 maps, 40% loss. I fucking stuck and couldn't move in a 1v1 versus Snacks, LMFAO. May 14th, following this. So it's not 30% in net graph, but routing issues, which spikes to 30% loss in random situations. So which one is it?
Yeah.
Is it 40% lost the entire server the entire time?
The whole best of 3, remember, all 3 maps, not just
or is it 30% randomly spiking? If he can't post match tell you directly, here is what happened and here's how it worked, how can we think that he communicated correctly to the admins in the middle of the match to tell them what was happening and what the problem was and what fixed it and what didn't? And that comes down to, this is Valve's fault because not allowing a 6th person in the room, only the players, sorry to burst your bubble, guys. Most players are not super intelligent. Like they're not dumb, but they're not, like, you don't need to be a genius to play fucking click on heads effectively. Okay. It's not like most players aren't very cerebral in that they, like, I talk about it like when you're playing out a game of CS, you're not thinking through all the scenarios and you're like, oh, he's going to do that, then this, then that, then this. What you're really doing is like you're playing off instinct. Yeah. And that doesn't require fucking 300 IQ. That just requires good instincts. Okay.
Yeah, remember, professional players also aren't particularly tech savvy either. Like the amount of times that I follow a professional player and his tweet comes up like, anybody know how to set up Streamlabs OBS? I can't figure out how to click the third button in the row. I don't know what's going on.
Here's the other thing, because even the players don't even know in-game settings very well. I remember, like, literally Stiko had a video with Launders where he said when you're scoped in, you can't see their shadows. No, when you are scoped in, you can see their shadows if your shadow settings are if they're not on low. But if they're on low, then you can't see the shadows. So even when it comes to in-game settings, they're not always on point. They don't actually know all the answers.
Not to shit on
so-
Stico specifically, but you have to realize that he was the player I was thinking of when I said that players aren't tech savvy, because he's had a few of those OBS tweets or whatever, like, help me set up.
Yeah, well, here, let me tell you, professional NHL player, okay, one of the best professional NHL players, okay. His name is Taylor Hall, okay, Taylor Hall. By the way, did you get it set up so I can actually, you can run things on the screen or no? Did that not?
I can do it in a very lo-fi way. You want me to show something?
Oh, no, it's good. Okay, so Taylor Hall. I'm trying to look for my thing to clean my.
Do you have like an autograph of him or something? What are you looking for?
No. I need this to clean my dirty ass glasses.
Oh, okay. You
so
saw
Taylor
me doing
Hall,
monkey see, monkey do. I see how it is.
Here's the thing. Taylor Hall is a NHL player making $7 million a year. Okay, and he failed his open book online boating test twice. Twice he failed it. And if you look it up, I promise you, the questions are borderline kindergartners can answer these questions. It's like, is it okay to drink and drive? Is this how you put on a life jacket? Like, it's literally the most basic open book questions. He failed it twice. Cherry on top. Not only did he fail it twice, he thought it was a good idea to tweet that he failed it twice.
Sure.
Okay. So he failed it twice and tweeted that he knows he's an idiot. He just wants to drive his boat.
And he wants other people to know that he's an idiot too, I guess. Yeah.
And this is a professional hockey player, supposedly supposed to be smarter than a professional gamer because it's more competition. You know, he makes more money. Okay. This is the level we're at. Like, I'm sure there's lots of smart pro players. I'm just saying there are also, it's not a requirement to be a genius to be a professional player. Okay.
Sure.
Anyways, if they can't after the fact say consistently what happened and what the problem was, then how can you expect that they communicated to the admin team correctly to describe it? Okay, and that comes back to not allowing a tech in the room or their coach in the room who would probably be able to diagnose these issues and send out information much more accurately. So I think there is a very good chance that NIP not getting a postponed match is likely due to communication problems more so than anything else. I think, honestly, I feel like that's the most likely situation. Now, following that, like, hold on, where was I going with it? I really think it is most likely to do with communication, which really is on Valve.
Considering they disbarred coaches and similar other support staff,
yeah.
I'll say, yeah. Okay.
I mean, maybe there's more Flashpoint could have done, but I mean,
yes, the crux of your point was Flashpoint's not the one who should be taking all of the shit, and they have taken all of the shit for the most part.
Yeah, they've taken all the shit. It's very, and the thing is, we just not received communication, like the communication, and everyone goes, oh, well, look at the server logs, like the in-game chat. The in-game chat isn't where you're supposed to, like, isn't where you should be communicating exactly the fixes you're trying and how much they're working. And you know it's not where they communicated it because there are people talking about chat logs and comms that we aren't privy to, even though we're privy to all the fucking in-game chats. So you know there's some other areas where they're talking, and we would need that to know if they were giving adequate information to Flashpoint. And it would be in Flashpoint's best interest, by the way, to not have a series where Device is in the middle of it tweeting that Flashpoint sucks. It's in their best interest if they're given adequate information to not have that happen. Okay, so you would think that they would want to postpone the series if NIP gave them a chance. Okay, maybe there's broadcast situations, whatever, but you would think that they would want to avoid that fucking garbage, right? Okay, then after the series, okay. Now, what NIP needed to do, by the way, they needed to refuse to play. And Thorin made a good point on by the numbers, and I think he's made this on Twitter as well. If players can't stand up for themselves when they're getting fucked, how are you expecting they're going to stand up for their fellow competitors when their fellow competitors are getting fucked? You're in a series where you think that you have serious internet problems, and you, in your mind, have pointed it and said, this is Flashpoint's issue. This is not our connection. You've pointed it at them, and you don't have the fucking balls to stop and say, we're not playing. How can you be expected to stand up for anyone else? You have to have the steeliness, I guess, like to fucking stop and say, I'm not playing this shit. And while people say, well, what maybe Valve would react poorly, they didn't do shit when Fnatic forfeited a game in the actual tournament in DreamHack, an actual Valve event in the playoffs, I think, right? In the playoffs?
Yes, it was the quarterfinals, the famous Olaf pass.
I don't even think Valve said a word about it. No? So there is precedent that Valve won't do anything, especially if you think you were hard done by. Valve is obviously very player focused, right? Valve is very pro player. There's no way they would do anything.
Certainly nothing disciplinary, If anything, they would have actually done something to Flashpoint specifically, if they were going to come down on any side of the aisle.
Next thing I want to bring up is this fucking tweet that Nell made pointing to the rules, okay? This one is borderline, if not actually intentionally misleading, because this Nell tweet cites a rule that is one paragraph below the rule that says network cuts. The paragraph above it says network issues, server cuts, server outages, internet problems. It says it, the paragraph above. I find it hard to believe that he read that paragraph, moved on to the next, read that, and said, this one that's clearly talking about cheaters and bug glitches and exploits is definitely the one that's talking about network cuts. Forget the one that talked about network cut. Like, serious, you got to be fucking joking me. Sure. Like, the paragraph directly above says network cuts at the top. It's so obviously the one they're referencing. Now, I will admit, the one above it, the one with network cuts, is a tiny bit ambiguous because it says, if it happens before a round, the round will be replayed. If it happens during a round and the outcome of the round can be determined, then the round will not be replayed. And I can tell what Flashpoint meant by that, but it is a bit ambiguous. Sure. Okay, so I can see that maybe, if I was going to link that on Twitter, that whole thing, people would argue both ways depending on who they're a fan of, really. Even though, in my opinion, I think it's clear what the intent was, and we'll get to the rule change that they made. It's clear. It's even more clear what the intent was. Okay. Yes. Now, the thing is, the replay should never fucking happen ever, because obviously the lag wasn't bad enough that NIP thought they couldn't win. Okay?
Yeah, they wouldn't have played if that was the case.
Exactly. If NIP thought they could not win, if they thought they were in such bad circumstances they couldn't win, they would have stopped playing. If they were running into walls in T-Spawn, this game isn't getting played. They're just going to say, okay, we'll take the DQ. We'll take the fucking forfeit. By the way, there is in Flashpoint 2's rules, because I'm citing Flashpoint 2, not Flashpoint 3, since we don't have the official Flashpoint 3 rulebook. You can, mid-match, request a reschedule or request a delay. It is in there. You can do that. You literally can. And that's why the official request for replay happened between map 2 and 3, probably because they didn't read the fucking rulebook to begin with. So they didn't even realize that they could request a delay in the match. But, it's not that they had to play out. The scenario in which is saying with the exploits that you have to play out. Imagine LDLC was just like, nah, Fnatic's cheating. Oh, they were using that boost. Like, you've ruined the whole integrity of the game. You've got a forfeit loss if you stop in the middle of the Fnatic boost and try and dispute it. So the replay should never have happened. And it looks like to me, I don't think Flashpoint wanted a replay, because think about it for a second. What does a replay do? First of all a replay does is shift who gets fucked from NIP to Anonymo, okay? And Anonymo gets fucked way more than NIP did, because Anonymo has no out. NIP could have just stopped playing, okay? They could have just stopped playing. Anonymo has no choice, really, in getting fucked. So saying that it wouldn't have happened, or that it would have happened if Anonymo was the one getting fucked, you are high if you genuinely think that. There's no way. There's no universe, because not only does it only shift who gets fucked from NIP to Anonymo, but also now everyone hates Flashpoint. Everyone hates Flashpoint. NIP hates Flashpoint for their players getting harassed. NIP fans hate Flashpoint for even having to watch them play it, and they're sympathetic with their players. Anonymo's going to hate Flashpoint. Anonymo fans are literally everyone. All eyes are on Flashpoint for shitting the bed when they force a replay. Of course, they didn't want a fucking replay, and you add into that, I think, conspiracy theory time. I don't think it was an accident that Flashpoint tweeted out, NIP has given Anonymo the option. Yes. I don't think that was, I'm not sure. I don't want to point fingers at someone that I can't say for sure, but it feels kind of like if I wanted to say fuck you to Nip, if I really was mad at Nip, that's exactly what I would do. I would do that type of thing, and Nip would be like, you gotta fucking delete that, and I'd be like, oh, I deleted it. Like, it's, you can't delete anything, it's out there forever.
Sure.
Then if you look at the rule changes, Pranoga, you can tell me if you read this the same way. To me, the rule changes say, here's the old rules, here's the rules. New rules is the old rules, but there's no room for you to argue for any loopholes. They're the same rules with different words. That's all it is, which means there's always, in every rule book, we're going to interpret this how we interpret it for these specific scenarios. So you can't argue, well, it's a little bit ambiguous. You go, look, this was the intent of the rules, so this is how we're going to apply the rules, okay? And the rules didn't actually change, it just changed the wording. So what they're saying is this is always the intent of the rules, but now it's literally the wording in the rules. There's no loophole here, which if you just read between the lines, that means they didn't want to do a rematch, but they did because of who knows. Take your own guess, okay? Take your own fucking guess. But when the old rules are the rules and the new rules are the old rules plus some extra words, it doesn't change the meaning of the old rules. You got to say that they didn't want to do the fucking rematch. You have to think that.
One of the things that I've taken away from this whole exchange, specifically with the rule set changes, is that they're basically saying like you said, there was never supposed to be a rematch. The shit was not supposed to happen this way. The rules clearly stated one way or the other. Now, one thing that yields some sort of ground, I would suppose, is Flashpoint apparently figured out very later after the match that the server issue or whatever the connection issue was actually to do with them and was their prerogative, which is one of the reasons why people are then saying there must have been a rematch, because Flashpoint became obvious that Flashpoint themselves were at fault. The problem is I have not seen any evidence of this. Now, it could be that I just didn't see it not because it doesn't exist, but because it's just not been out there, it's not been publicized, or I just haven't come across it. But to my knowledge, I mean, this would have been something perhaps easy to miss in the tirade or torrent
Richard Lewis
of ridiculous
did say
numbers.
that he can confirm that there was loss, but
but that doesn't
yeah, nobody can confirm that it was definitely Flash. I actually wanted to say that I saw a game. Kenny S was streaming, he got 40% loss. Did you see this?
Yes, yeah, and he was still hitting shots like nobody's business.
Dude, no,
he was hitting better shots on that game than he did on fucking G2 the last 6 months of his career, dude.
Here's the thing. All of his information was going to the server.
Yes.
None of that was the problem. All of his info was going to the server just fine. So he was hitting all the shots that he hit. It was the information coming back that was a bit delayed. Okay, that was the issue. So of course it's going to be kind of hard to play if you're spraying at someone and it takes half a second to know they're dead for sure. It's going to be a bit of a problem, but it's not nearly as bad as if your information wasn't getting to the server and people aren't dying when you shoot them. Like, Nip 100% had a chance to win. This is the one thing I forgot to say. I want to say, if Nip has a chance to win in the first one, a reasonable chance to win, if they're running into walls, this becomes a whole different situation, okay? But if they have a reasonable chance to win in the first series, you can't replay, because if they won, you would never replay the series. You would never replay it. And by the way, nobody's asking how bad the lag was. I feel like I'm in a fucking crazy house, dude. Like, why is nobody asking, hey, by the way, do we think the lag was so bad that Nip had no chance to win? Because, like, of course, if Nip plays an open team on 20%, 30% loss, and they have no reasonable chance to win, they can still win. They can still take the OT because the other team is so dog shit that they can just destroy them.
Yes.
But the question is, is the lag bad enough that they had no reasonable chance to win? Like, if you go into a fucking 100-meter dash with no shoes on, it's kind of maybe reasonable chance to win. If you go in with one leg, you've got no chance to fucking win, okay? Like, you got to question, did they have a reasonable chance to win? If the answer is yes, then you cannot replay the match.
That's the thing, too, is that if you consider the amount of evidence that would be required to prove Nip's case, it's literally just like a recording from one of the players to say, like, look at our loss, look at our issues, right? And I guess you could make an argument that, well, recording lowers my FPS, lol, because this is 2001 and we don't have modern recording capture technology. Well, I get to their fucking point. I guess, Valve does disallow you to record. So whatever, OBS and all that shit. But I did want to just mention, like, come on, at this point, you gotta wonder what the fuck is going on there. Like, you gotta wonder why there wasn't some sort of like, even like a 10-second clip in warm up, like showing the loss spike. Like, look at this loss spike. This is what I'm playing with. We wouldn't know how consistent it was, but we would at least know what what it consisted of, how bad it actually was when it was spiking. And then you'd have to trust the players on their reports, or you'd have to look at the server logs themselves, like actual server logs of information coming in, and see what happens. So the fact that there's no evidence of how bad the loss was, and the fact that there's no evidence that actually it was Flashpoint's fault, all of this stuff, unfortunately, leads me to suspect the worst. Because as we'll find out later in this episode, I have found the worst in esports already, and it just gets to the point where, like, at some point you have to suspect bad actors. The fact that there's no recording of the lag from the NIP's perspective, the fact that there's no publicized evidence of the fact that Flashpoint was apparently at fault with the connection, and the fact that all they're saying is, well, NIP came to us, apparently we've somehow magically found out that it was our fault, so now we're replaying. And oh, by the way, NIP offered Anonymo the replay. Offered, in air quotes, by the way. Yeah, good fucking luck pulling the wool over my eyes, bro. Maybe I'm just vac sucked out of my mind right now, and I'm somehow thinking that it was all a conspiracy, but it doesn't seem above board to me. I feel like there would be more actual evidence to NIP's case that would exonerate them in the minds of the average viewer, or the anybody who isn't just going to buy in based on cult of personality or based on who they like the most in the exchange. If there's somebody who's just sitting on the sidelines trying to figure out what's going on and put together the puzzle, then they should be able to look at the evidence that's out there and see, okay, well, NIP's case makes sense, checks out because of XYZ. We see the recording of the loss, we see logs indicating how frequently the loss spiked, and then we see evidence of Flashpoint being at fault for the loss. These three things combined together, it's a magic number of 3. That's all you need is 3 points of evidence, and you've proven your case, and you're done. But none of them exist. None of them. Literally none of them exist, Vu.
You also have to question, why did they not request a replay or a reschedule until between maps 2 and 3?
Yes.
Like, why didn't they request this immediately? Why is the official request for a reschedule only at map 3? That's like, how bad could the lag be if you're not requesting it before map 3? All evidence seems to point to they thought they could win anyways because it wasn't that bad, so they kept playing.
The first map was a 16-3 victory for them, despite the fact that before the series started, they were complaining about some loss. So,
And then apparently there's been a tweet where they say, heading into map 3, that there was no lag. Apparently, people are saying there was a tweet, but nobody's got the receipts. So I don't know if it actually happened. You can't say for sure.
Got those receipts, put them in the chat. Chat us up, boys.
We got to get the screenshot.
Yeah.
If we get the screenshot, then we know for sure. But I mean, that is even more evidence that Flashpoint wasn't really at fault, because how the fuck are they supposed to know it's their fault if like the teams are just giving shit information at all times? Like, what are you supposed to do?
Especially if they did actually tweet out that we found a fix for the issues, and heading into map 3 we will be even more competitive, and we'll now be running at full strength or whatever. And then the only thing you have to worry about is player tilt, and device tilting. I can't think of any. Thorin did have that banging tweet where he's like, I've been informed that Device's issue apparently is not lost, but now it's choke. Well, we can't hold that against him. That's been a problem for years, something like that.
I think the best tweet to come out of this was Richard Lewis made a tweet. NIP, what used to be nothing in PayPal. It was like a really sick one, but NIP, no internet provider.
Yeah. Well, that's true too, because I think Anonymo themselves even said, we have prepared secondary internet service provider in case something bad happens. NIP should do the same or something. It's like, and then of course the 10 steps ahead meme, which became like 10 steps behind.
I mean, even Fallen said they went to a different house when they had a problem.
Literally just moved houses in the middle of an online tournament when it happened. Yeah. So
I mean, if everything that matters, if your connection is the difference between making or losing hundreds of thousands of dollars, then you should probably have a different connection, or like a cyber cafe you can go to fucking fix the issue.
I don't know, man. It just doesn't make any sense. Maybe Device just didn't want to have to, take everybody on a train down to Denmark and do the quarantine like he had done so many times for Astralis. That was on the table, but he just couldn't do it this time around. Jeez, he couldn't do it one more time. What really gets me the most is, like, you brought up the point, why was there no reschedule before map 3 if it actually was a problem? I believe before map 3, obviously, as we mentioned, is the fabled tweet that we can't find, which is NIP claiming the problem is fixed. If that was the case, then that makes sense why they didn't go for it, right? But something about this whole situation screams like not like unresolved fucking conflict and some issue where like the worst thing that you can imagine is NIP as a bigger org bullying Flashpoint into fucking compliance, and then as a result having their way with Anonymo a second time. And it wasn't a legit match the first time around, but that's where you reschedule. That's not where you replay, literally. And maybe what happened is the lag was so bad, Vu, that they sent the replay request, the reschedule request, but it only happened after the third match. Oh, Jesus, the lag was that bad. Who would have guessed? The other thing, too,
I will say that on By the Numbers, Richard Lewis does say, I think he said, like, I'm going to come out with it, like, anyone with even a tenuous link has heard the rumblings behind the scene. I believe that's what he said, or something to
regarding this specific issue?
To that effect. Yeah, regarding this specific issue. So, like, basically, my understanding of what he meant was there was a business pressure applied, and everyone knows it. And that's where you really have to question NIP. You also, I mean, I don't blame NIP for trying to say, like, you know, these are the rules. We would like to go after these rules. If they genuinely believe that the ambiguity in the rules, if they find someone in the org, they just look for someone and tell everyone to read these rules until you find someone that goes, oh yeah, this issue does clearly mean we'll replay the whole game. If you find someone that legitimately believes that the game should be replayed in the rules, you go and you say, look, I think the rules mean that. I'm fine with that. It's any outside pressure applied, that's where there's a fucking big problem. You know, and it seems like, plus the fact that like everybody's tweets seem to all at the NIP CEO and like be angry at the NIP CEO. I would think that, you know, I would say the evidence would suggest that some fuckery was involved.
Speaking of fuckery, now you said you had the hottest take here because you wanted to absolve Flashpoint of some of their issues here, some of their blame. But I think I might one up you here because, as I said before we started the show, I think it's not Flashpoint to blame. I think it's Thorin, and I will explain why now. So Thorin, as you all may know, left Flashpoint before Flashpoint 3, after Flashpoint 2, somewhere in the middle there. And I believe it was before he was even necessarily consulted with specific duties related to Flashpoint 3. You can see his whole video where he explains that. Well, what happens after he leaves Flashpoint 3? Consider his role as creative director and how he was very buddy-buddy with Monte Cristo, specifically, who is, up until recently, remember, he was the commissioner of the Flashpoint League.
Well, what is he do? What is he now?
The problem is he had a conflict of interest with one of the teams and had to absolve himself of being the commissioner during the runtime of Flashpoint 3. I don't remember which team it was, but this means during this event, they had no commissioner. Now, who might have been able to step in the shoes of the commissioner of the league? Who might have talked to the commissioner of the league extensively about the operations and might know the scene? Oh, it's that guy, the esports historian, esports historian, Ian. That guy, he could have done it. Now, unfortunately, he stepped out because of principles and not enough money and whatever else he said in his video. That's a little goofy if you ask me. I mean, principles in esports? Hasn't this guy fucking read the road? Hasn't he read the room? Hasn't he hit the road? What's going on with this guy? Explain this to me, Vu. Why did Thorin not stick around long enough for Monte Cristo to suddenly develop a conflict of interest and then step in as commissioner? And then maybe he could have fixed everything. He could have fixed this situation, and then he could have also fixed everything that Monte Cristo wasn't fixing. Do you have any thoughts on this?
I mean, it just sounds like it's a shame Thorin wasn't there to fix all of the issues. Like, I mean, Flashpoint should have had, I guess they should have had someone else. I don't know. The thing is, if
the
Thorin
fact that they
was
didn't
there,
have a commissioner this whole time and then this issue happens is pretty fucking bad because then they have no face to fall back on, right?
I feel like the thing is, if Thorin was there, the community would be even more against Flashpoint. Sure. But at the very least,
I am being facetious with my point, but yeah.
If Thorin had say in it, Thorin would be like, I would rather Flashpoint be dissolved than replay this match.
Yeah.
Like he would literally say that shit. Yeah. And if there was business pressure applied, he would have been the first one out mentioning it. Someone in chat says, it was from Nip's Twitter. Thank you, NordVPN and whatever the fuck else, for helping us solve the issue by routing us via other country servers. We've been playing the first and second map on 30-40% packet loss. That
if we can
I feel like that's the nail in the coffin, dude. That's the fucking nail in the coffin, dude. If that screenshot happens and they only replay map 3, I mean, even replaying the whole series
deleted,
is a joke
allegedly.
To begin with.
Hold on. Live lookup in the
tweet
in the
isn't
background.
Deleted. Okay.
From NIPCS? Or is it the proper NIP? Let's see. Let's find out. It is kind of ridiculous, by the way, that I just went to NIP at NIPCS, and in their Twitter bio, they have links to their HLTV profiles instead of like actual links to anything. It's just okay. All right, fine. Let me scroll through here.
I got it.
You got it. Okay. Well, there you go. That is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. So they said it was solved.
Where do we go from here now? There's absolutely no way you could possibly think that this is anything other than like, how is this tweet even still up? How?
Wait, hold on. When did the series end? This is what I want to know. Like, at what time did the series end? Because like this tweet is look at the tweet that this is responding to. So this tweet is responding to a tweet from Hitchum saying issues still not resolved and we are being forced to play through with massive loss due to server issues. Lost us map 2 and we'll lose this map 3. Game is unplayable. We're connecting to other servers with no. If the game was unplayable, by the way, they forfeit. They 100%. There's no question they forfeit.
Yeah, absolutely.
This game would have. I mean, just think about it. Think about. Are you seriously going to believe? If you're seriously going to believe that if NIP stop playing a game and say Flashpoint is trying to force us to play with issues that are not our fault, and they stop playing, you seriously believe that Flashpoint is going to fucking DQ them? They will look into everything and they will only DQ them if it's NIP's issue. They would the shitstorm that would rain down upon Flashpoint if they DQ'd NIP for refusing to play with unplayable packet loss. The shitstorm would be astronomical, dude. The shitstorm would be magnitudes greater than anything ever before seen. Of course, they would not have done it. Okay, so it's just weird because he says, like Hitchum seems to think this problem is still remaining, but then an hour later almost, they're saying they fixed the issue. I'm just wondering if that's mid-series or after the series or what.
So I'm trying to find the series was 6 days ago, but I'm trying to find the exact timestamp. Unfortunately, HLTV has overwritten the timestamp with the rematch that happened 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So that's not particularly helpful. I guess what we can do is we can just look for news on it or something. But yeah, what it looks like is, I mean, you wouldn't tweet this out. You wouldn't tweet this out if there was no solution. He specifically says solve the issue, helping us.
I don't think they're lying. I don't think it's a lie, although you might disagree. I don't think it's a lie. I think it's just more proof that they were not communicating effectively with Flashpoint. Sure. I think that's what it is. It's just continual proof that they have been fucking not at all communicating correctly with. Oh yeah. This is after the series. Because if you look, Anonymo,
isn't that even more damning?
That is 10 times more damning.
Because they're literally saying
a million times worse.
Yeah, they're literally saying thanks for fixing map 3 for us.
Look at the timestamp on this Twitter. They say they 2-1. We have it 2-1 over NIP, and internet in Poland over internet in Sweden. That is a fucking banger of a tweet. But that is at the same time, that's a minute before NIP tweeted that they didn't have loss in all 3 maps.
Yep. There you go. They had loss on 2 of the maps.
Why is this tweet still up?
I don't know.
Why is this? Because Device replies 6 minutes later and says it's all 3 maps.
Even the org doesn't know what the fuck is going on in this team.
What the fuck? Why is this tweet still up? Dude, this feels like a fucking conspiracy at this point. Like, why did
are you getting a Berenstein Bears fucking trip from this? Do you know what I'm talking about?
6 minutes later, Device replies and he says all 3 maps 40% loss. So why is the NIP CS tweet still up?
And if it's tweeting the CEO or whatever, saying that it's not working and we're gonna lose.
If it's not true, why is it still up? And if it is true, why does Device reply with that? Dude, I'm so fucking confused. Why does the CEO
before the series ends, the CEO says it will loose us map 3. They threw, I guess. Yeah, that's
This makes no fucking sense.
Why?
This is
Like the whole
literally
thing is like they fucked up, dude. They were supposed to time travel a little bit further back before making these fucking tweets, I think, or maybe a little bit further forward, because something does not add up with this fucking timeline. Something is really broken here,
dude. I'm just so like, dude. Like the things that are coming to my mind, like at the top of my theory craft ideas, is like, yeah, they had loss only in the first 2 maps, but then they just tried to kind of obfuscate that because they feel like they would have won 2-0 if they hadn't had the loss. So they just replayed map 3, like something like that. Like that's kind of what it fucking feels like. Like this is so confusing. Why? Why is this? Why did they not delete this tweet if it was wrong? Like that's the real question.
Yeah,
like
if Device is claiming it's wrong because he says it's all 3 maps.
Yeah, if this social media manager was just wrong when they fucking tweeted this, that's one thing. That's believable. I understand that. Sometimes mistakes happen. It would be more evidence that there's missing communication between the fucking teams and the TO, and that would be more.
They can't even communicate within themselves, yeah.
Exactly. That would be more evidence of miscommunications. But why is it still up if it's wrong?
Because the social media manager missed the communication to delete it, obviously.
I really was just thinking that this was just like more evidence of bad communication and that you can't necessarily blame it on Flashpoint if Nip's not communicating correctly. But why is it still up? Why is this still around?
Explain me that. What I want to know is what, like, I don't know, dude. I'm completely lost in this whole situation. So my timeline of events was Nip play the first map, and before even the first map begins, they complain about server issues and they delay, and then they win the first map. And Flashpoint is all jokey on the broadcast. They're like, "Fuck yeah, they're gonna win! Look, it was 16-3 or 16-5 or whatever. It was so easy for them." And then they go into the second map and they start getting really smashed. Well, not really smashed. It was 16-13. It was a close match. And then they go into the third map and they're not delaying. Still, they haven't fucking done anything like that. They've apparently used up all of their delays in the first map or something. Because if you look at the server logs, it's on Overpass, the first map, I'm pretty sure, when everybody's complaining about lag. So why was there a tweet? Why is this real?
I want someone to explain this to me. Like my brain is not big enough to understand like the reasoning behind this. My brain is just, I'm just not smart enough, dude. I'm just like, we'll just admit it. I'm just not smart enough. I'm not smart enough to understand the logic behind this tweet remaining active. So I'm gonna tweet it out. Why is this tweet still up if Nip was supposed to have had loss on all 3 maps?
And here I thought it was impossible to lose a best of 3, 3-0.
I just don't understand, dude. I'm so fucking confused, man. I'm so confused.
Reality is falling apart around us, unfortunately. Are you sure that we're not figments of your own imagination? Like, did you take some of those vegan capsules again?
Dude.
Your expression tells me everything I need to know. Why is this the way that it is? Even the org doesn't know what loss they have. Jesus Christ. Nobody knows. Maybe there's an easy explanation. What would the easiest explanation be here? Just that they didn't, like, just that they tagged sponsors or at least companies they work with and use in a tweet that is factually wrong? Is that the easiest explanation? Is that really like the Occam's razor solution to this? That doesn't really make sense to me. Because nobody just tweets on an account like this. Like, it's not like the social media manager is like tweeting, haha, lol, we have lost, but we won anyway. Some stupid meme. Like, they're not tweeting for engagement. They're literally tweeting as an announcement for a game that they're playing and tagging people that if they don't sponsor, they certainly used them for the game. So it's good publicity for them if it worked. Like, so did they really, like, nobody just apropos of nothing does that. That has to get approved. There's a chain of command. There's a fucking Nikolai colon or whatever in front of Device's tweet and shit. Like, there's stuff like this, right? There's something here. I think we just we've seen something we shouldn't have seen, Vu. I think that's the problem. And I think, how many impressions did that tweet get? Probably like 20K or something, maybe even more.
I guess maybe the argument is that they were just being helped, that they didn't actually solve the issue, but they said for
They
helping
literally
us
said,
solve
"Help
the
us
issue.
solve the issue." Yeah, help us to
But
solve.
maybe
the issue.
they mean they were helping us try to solve the issue. I guess that's the argument. That's the only argument that makes any
So
sense.
the argument is that they misrepresented the people that they were working with and said that they fixed
I
it
don't know.
completely.
The argument is just that they fucking misworded it, and I guess
Okay.
they're a Swedish organization, so you can understand. It's just this should just be deleted. Oh, as far as I understood, this tweet had been deleted.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just so confused.
Maybe the problem is that they only recently came up with these NIPCS orgs and stuff, so they probably were looking at it at the main NIP Twitter account, and that's probably why they couldn't find it, so they assumed it was deleted. That's probably where that came from.
Like, dude, I'm fucking lost.
Yeah,
man. I'm legit. I'm just like, dude, I'm fucking completely lost.
I think we have lost, actually.
I am fucking completely lost. Why is this tweet remaining up? Dude, I feel like I'm in fucking Bizarro world, man. It's just crazy. Why? Did they not have loss on map 3? Or did they have loss on map 3? Their official statement is that they didn't. That is their official statement.
Yes, and then Device's official statement is that they did.
Did they say anything else afterwards? Like, it's hard to go through back through org Twitters because they take fucking 5,000 tweets a day. Like,
well, they didn't
Christ.
reply to the tweet. I don't know. Device had 69 replies, so I can see if there's any more context there.
Hold on, they had their official statement. The official statement. The our timelines fucking saga was so funny, dude. It was so funny.
Somebody suggested that the tweet comes off as sarcastic because they didn't help at all. That's not what an org would tweet though.
Okay, so their official timeline, we played all 3 maps in the series with consistent packet loss. That's like the next tweet. So basically what I understand now is that but this is after the series they tweeted this.
That's what I'm saying.
After the series
they tweeted it after it was completely done.
After the game was completed, they tweeted that they had no loss on map 3.
Yeah, literally because it was helping us solve the issue by routing us, and then afterwards they specify first and second map. Why would they tweet specifying the first and second map after the series was over, which includes the third map, because that's how series work? So they specifically omit the third map 1 hour after the series ends? Yeah, this is fucked, dude. They fucked up. Someone's getting fired. Someone's out of a job. Someone had a porky.
I gotta get some water, dude. I gotta walk this off, man.
There we go. There it is. Well, chat, it's just you and me. I'll probably cut this part out unless something hilarious happens. But I gotta say, I am fucking bamboozled. Hey, at the very least, if you missed Vu's CSGO tier list, he very briefly put me above Launders in the CSGO YouTuber tier list. So that was pretty good. I got a screenshot of that. Screenshot evidence that it happened, not photoshopped. Pretty good stuff. Man, I got to tell you, this NIP scandal just keeps on giving. Hi.
All right. Let's move on. Okay.
I agree. I was just commenting that for a very short period of time, there's a screenshot evidence of you putting me above Launders on your CSGO YouTuber tier list. And I really appreciate the support. I like that.
Yeah,
I actually want to briefly touch on this because obviously it'll be a quick highlight of your 2vu channel, which people can check out at youtube.com/search bar, type 2vu, hit enter. That's it. Then we can talk about not just that kind of content, but maybe some of the other stuff you got planned for it. I wanted to ask about one of the things that you were grading these people on is like more that it was part of it was actually length of content. Like one of the things that you talked about Thorin with was that like some of his content's long and boring, but you still got to watch it because nobody else can do it, right? Something to that effect. Can you elaborate on that thought process? Did I misrepresent it? Did I get something wrong?
Well, it's kind of like length of the content. Like you can have a long, like Let Me Know, for example, if you've ever seen his channel.
He's got plenty.
It's
of really
long
good stuff,
and edited very well, but most of the time, long content is code for boring content, basically. Like, so that's kind of the idea. Like, how boring is it? How how does it flow essentially? Like
Yeah.
the flow is like the primary thing I rank a lot of people on is flow of their video. Like how much does it keep me actively interested in the content, not to want to click off, you know?
It's a tough ask because I'm trying to think of like how you would distill that, because so this is something we talked about when we were building the thumbnail for that DomCasts video, which was a hilarious video that everybody watching this has probably already seen. But I will say the thumbnail there was I'm used to, like, when I do my video game design shit, I'm used to like very subtle things, like trying to like imply something, you know, like try to be, you know, a little bit highbrow, you could say. I don't know how to describe it. It's just like I'm not trying to be overly obvious. So it's the opposite, the antithesis of designing a thumbnail, where the whole point is not only can it look really good on a fucking phone, but it also has to just be like in your face obvious what this video is. Like here's an advertisement for the video, whatever. You can't have anything like the clickbait theme or whatever. You can't have anything subtle in the same way. Like nobody's gonna look for an Easter egg in a thumbnail usually. So it's that kind of shit. So that extends, I would say, in general to my thought process on videos, where I personally listen to a lot of podcasts on YouTube, like the Lex Friedman podcast and stuff like that. I listen to Joe Rogan every now and then. Well, I used to when it was on YouTube. And then there's a bunch of other shit that I listen to, like CS pods and stuff. But for the most part, like I don't have I guess what I'm saying is I don't have the same like ADHD issue where I'll just click off a video. So have you actually been able to like put your mind in the body of that kind of person who is a little bit more on the quick to tire crowd? Or is that even like, are you actually somebody who...
No, I mean, as evidenced by the fact that the first 5 years of my channel, I was fucking making pauses for 2.5 minutes where I was just talking. It's probably not. It was like a podcast, basically. That's what some people have put
unscripted
it as.
And like unedited and stuff like that.
The idea is just that in order for a YouTube video to be good, you need to hook them in and then give them no reason to click off. That's going to work really well for that video. And long pauses are a reason to click off, because it's just, what am I looking at? I'm just like thinking, he's just talking at me. Like, is this really relevant? Like, those are good. Those are reasons to click off the video. So you try and give as few reasons to click off. It's not necessarily that people are ADD and that they need something going. It's just that it's a reason to click off. Like, you're giving them an excuse to leave the video. That's what you're doing. If you don't give them an excuse, if it's constantly going, constantly flowing, new thing, chained into the last thing, everything makes sense, you're continually pushing the narrative forward, then you're going to have a video that is hard to click off. And so when people get interested, they will continue to watch the entire video. Increased watch time is increased viewers, basically. Higher, like, you want the highest click-through rate possible and more watch time, because YouTube will recommend your video to more people if they watch it for longer, right? They want as many people on YouTube for as long as possible. So a higher watch time. I think it's a little bit of the watch time literally. For example, a 10-minute video with a 5-minute watch time is probably going to be recommended a little bit less than a 5-minute video with a 5-minute watch time, in my opinion. Like, that's just my guess. I don't know this for a fact. I would imagine that if you watch the whole video, it probably matters more. But I mean, you know, either way, right? Like, you just don't want to give them time to like reasons to click off. And you will notice that when it comes to video, you can't be subtle. You have to be the opposite of subtle. And so I will massively agree, like massively over exaggerate things, which are like, okay, I want to show that he doesn't clear this angle, or I want to show that like he flicks off of a player. So I would do it in a way that I would never actually do it in real games, because if you do that on YouTube, the nuance is lost. People are kind of, maybe they're not fully watching. Maybe they're just kind of like watching a little bit. Maybe it's on a second monitor. You got to be like super. Yeah, nuance does not exist when it comes to like at least visuals.
Sure, makes sense. Somebody in the chat actually just mentioned the whole sponsorship angle, which is something I guess, to your point about Thorin and him doing stuff like nobody can do, that sponsorship stuff is like, I don't know that nobody can do it, but I would like to see more people going that angle. Like, I think we talked about this briefly, but I would come up with like insanely ridiculous, over the top.
It's hard for the sponsors. It's hard with sponsors because like I got to okay it with the sponsor.
Sure.
And this happened with Leadify, where I okayed them to do like a fake news segment, and they were like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And then I just like, first of all, it's cringe when you write it down.
Yeah.
When you write down the fucking,
you basically have to film it and send it to them if you want it to be like true to form,
yeah,
so to speak.
yeah, because it's like reading it back, it's fucking cringe. It's a skit that I just like ad lib, like I fucking made up in my head, and then I had to write it down and clear it with them. Now, if you're Thorin, where you already do that a lot, then they might just be, they're just going to tell you to ad lib, like do whatever you want, right? But most sponsors know what they want to get out, and they want to get out a certain amount of information. And it's more like the long-term sponsors that are more okay with just getting the product out, because eventually they'll get all that information anyways. So you just get the product out there in the most entertaining way possible. But yeah, I agree. Sponsors are hard. It's hard. I think it's important to have a good number of videos without sponsors on them, because they're more discoverable. They're gonna perform better. Not only because people aren't gonna click off. In fact, it's a very obvious loss in viewership when you have a sponsor, because people gives them a reason to click off. But gonna be honest, man, they pay me for one video. They pay me between half to a full month of YouTube income. Okay, so I'm not like this is the problem. Okay, this is the problem. I've got a video. I've got this product right in front of me. Okay, listen, I've got a PB&J sandwich in front of me. Okay, I've got it in front of me. Yeah, and someone says, I will pay you $1,000, okay, to cut it in half. And I'm like, why would I not do, like, I prefer it not to be cut in half, but why would I not cut it? This is literally no extra work to me, and you're giving me buckets of money, more than I would make in like 15, 20 days of YouTube.
Of selling the whole sandwich, yeah, of course.
yeah, like, it's just like, there's no okay, there is to some extent extra work, right? Because I have to make the ad, which is sometimes annoying, and this is why I turned down Raid Shadow Legends recently wanted to sponsor me, but they were so fucking annoying the first time around with everything. It was like a full day, like 12 hours getting their ad right for them. Most companies aren't like that. I can make it, I can crank it out in 2-3 hours, right? And then I just throw it in the video. It's literally like, I've done all the work for the video, I'm going to release it. Could I make $100 off this video or $1,000 off this video? Like, which one is it? Which would I prefer? And then it is to the point where it's kind of like, if I get, at some point I have to just be like, okay, I can't have a sponsor on every video. I think that's a bad thing. I think it's not good to have a sponsor on every video. So I have to say no. But how do you justify saying no? Like, honestly, how do you, I don't know. It's really tough. And like, I've said no a couple of times, but it really is tough.
Yeah, and the other angle is like, if you're like so what Thorin ends up doing by the looks of things is he just has a sponsor that he shills every single time, but he finds a way to almost like trick you in some of his intros where he doesn't even make it seem like it is a sponsor. Like he makes it seem like he's going to make a point with a larger video, but his videos are a bit more freeform and ad lib, so it's easier for him to do that. Whereas you've got to come up with like, you would basically have to film a new ad every video if you wanted to do that approach, which would definitely be more time consuming, but you'd also have to find a way to link whatever you're shilling in the ad to whatever content you're actually doing. Like,
I feel like I'm pretty good at ad-libbing that type of thing.
Yeah,
like, you could definitely do it. And I make like pretty funny skits.
Yeah.
Like the skit I was going to do for this was like a fake newscaster segment where it was going to be like a meta sponsorship where it's like basically I'm just going on and on about how the sponsor of this video is important. And like, it's a news segment where, so the point is like, this is a news segment. It's breaking news. But first, let's talk for 30 seconds about this sponsor. Who's the sponsor? Doesn't matter. It's a sponsor. The sponsor of the content is sponsoring our content. It's very important you understand that we've got a sponsor for this content. Like, that's why it's so cringe to write down. It's just like the whole, it is a meta fucking advertisement. It's completely meta. That's the whole point of it. And I had to write this shit down as a script. I remember back to that script because I haven't done it. It's been like 2 months and I haven't done it. I still kind of want to do it, but I think it's preventing me from doing it because I just remember back to the script and I'm like, God, that was so cringe. I can't believe what, like, someone had to read that. Like, if I was reading that, I would have been like, wow, does this guy seriously think this is fucking funny?
Yeah, but in actual execution, like, I'm a big proponent of ideas don't matter. It's all about your execution. And to some extent, ideas matter. Like, there is such a thing as a bad idea.
Oh, I got a banger idea. I got a banger idea. Holy shit. I can't say it on stream because someone's going to steal it. I swear to God. Sure. Because the guy that agreed to do it said he'll do it in a month.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
He said he will do it in a month.
Stay tuned in a month, boys. We'll see what happens.
I can tell you off stream, but
Sure.
I guarantee you. Listen. Why don't you mute the audio to the stream? Okay, and then I'll
mute
tell you.
You can tell me on
mute
my
me,
reaction.
and then I'll tell you, and then you react to it. You tell me what you think of this idea.
Okay, you're muted. Yeah, you're off. Yeah. Mike. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I already like this idea. Yeah. Okay.
It's a fucking banger, right?
Yeah,
that's a fucking banger.
Because you know, like, just that idea alone is going to attract so many different.
That's a million view idea. That's a million view idea.
Yeah, that's a large click through rate idea because somebody will just see the title of that. And then, like, you'll probably
100%.
get a really good thumbnail.
You don't have to keep them invested. Like, if it's a shit video, it's gonna be shit.
Yeah.
But
just the click alone, like the click
ego alert. Ego alert.
Go.
I make good videos. If people click, they will watch.
Sure, yeah. You can trust in the process.
Although, fucking Ludwig mentioned that his average watch time is like 15 minutes. Holy shit, dude!
You had to work hard to get that one. Yeah.
Like, my average watch time is it's about 40% of a video, which is good. Like 40 to 50% is good watch time because so many people generally click off. Especially it's really good because all of my videos in the last several months have had fucking ads on them, which means you lose, like, a normal video by 30 seconds. You have about, by a minute, you have about 75% a normal video for me. With an ad, it's like 60%. So I lose like 15% of my audience with an ad, which is big. It makes it harder for a video to perform, and it's really going to fuck with your retention. A good video for me without an ad is going to have somewhere between 45 and 60% watch time, which is quite good. Ludwig running fucking 50 to 70% with 15-minute watch times is unbelievable. I think that's the power of, like, personality-driven content where they're just going to watch whatever.
Yeah, and well, as you continue to grow as a content creator anyway, like, I mean, it must be weird to hear somebody say that anyway, because you've been in the game for so long, but I mean, you're probably seeing it from your own metrics that things are just continuing to go up and up. And
I mean, I've only taken it really seriously for about a year.
Yeah.
So since about February 2020, I've been taking this really seriously. And since then, I have literally gained 100,000 subs in the last year. So,
yeah.
And my channel, like, performance wise, my channel performs closer to the size of a channel or to the view count of a channel that's maybe 300 to 300k subs or so, like, on an average video. I mean, if you were to really average it out, I feel like the 4-level series is kind of cheating because that always gets views. There's a couple that have done poorly, but those are really rare. Almost every video has over 150k views or 200k views maybe now. Outside of that, I'd say it's like a 300k channel. With that, it's like a 400 to 500k channel, like, in terms of average viewership, because the average YouTube channel, there's a lot of dead subs, especially the way YouTube does it now. Your subscriptions don't fucking matter unless you hit the bell. There's a lot of dead subs, so the average channel gets like fucking 10% of their subs and views. And I usually run on an average video for me. I'd say, like, when I did the math at the beginning of April, an average video for me ran 100,000 views, which is like 70%. Well, at the time I was like 65%, 70% of my viewers per video, which is obviously really fucking good.
We got a question. Why does the bell matter? Maybe you can answer.
Because then you actually get a notification. Otherwise, listen, if I go into my subscriptions, let me switch back to my main channel because my second channel is only subscribed to myself. If I go to my my main channel, let's see, I am sub to Emma Pickles, Grade A Under A, Grim, Jake. I've seen Jake Kenji Lopez videos once in a while. Clossy, Laura in the Kitchen, Michelle Care, Michelle Thon, Mr. Shy City 3. He hasn't made a video in years. Although he was a fucking OG YouTuber, by the way. Mr. Shy City 3. Look up Mr. Shy City 3. He's the one with the fridge video. You know the fridge video where his fridge is stocked with fucking every drink in the world?
No.
You don't know that? It's a dude. Hold on. Mr. Shy City 3, keep your fridge stocked. He talks about how having fucking everything in his fridge gets him women because they've got anything they want. Yeah, it's
I vaguely recall somebody retelling this joke where they also said
keeping
that
your refrigerator stocked will get you many women, and it's 14.2 million views. He literally just opens up his fridge with fucking every drink known to man in this
maybe I
fucking
do know
fridge.
this one then, because does he open the freezer and say he's got like a little like a popsicle?
I got hit him with the freeze pop.
Yeah, the freeze pop for the kid or something. If they're like a mom with a kid or a single mom.
He goes, hit that little N-bomb with the freeze pop.
There you go. There you go. Crazy.
Yeah, that's an OG YouTuber. He hasn't made videos in years, but like I've got all these people that their videos don't pop up on my YouTube. They don't, because I haven't watched their content in years.
Are you only looking at the homepage though?
Pretty much. I mean,
that must be how most people do it. I literally only look at my sub feed, to be honest with you. I must be some fucking alien.
Dude, I've never gone to my sub feed. How do you get to your sub? Oh no, sorry, I have gone to my sub feed. I went there a couple days ago when I discovered that it existed.
Oh my god, you didn't? How is a YouTuber not know that the sub feed exists?
I was not aware that the sub feed existed.
Yeah, no wonder you haven't seen anybody you sub to in years.
Even this, it only has people that I've watched somewhat recently.
I think those are the only people who have actually made videos recently.
No. I know of some of these people.
It's supposed to go in sequential order, like whatever it is. Like mine just says uploads from today. There's uploads from yesterday, and then
yeah, I feel like it's prioritizing videos I've watched, because this is all like Thorin, Upcomer, Elma Putty. There's a lot of people. I mean, it can only give you so many videos.
Sure. Well, it's supposed to just give you everything that was uploaded recently, so I don't know why.
I don't know. I've never fucking been on that page before, man.
Yeah, it's new discovery for Vu, the YouTube extraordinaire who knows everything about YouTube. Besides,
what's funny is actually my brother's been fucking hounding me that like I need to put my second channel content on my main channel because it's fucking brilliant.
I think it'll just grow over time, but yeah, if you, I mean, the question is, it really depends on whether or not you want to bifurcate your content like that, because it is a different style, because it's like just sort of whatever you want. Style.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, yeah, it's kind of tough, because like my second channel is doing really well, but do I want to if I put, like, for example, there's 2 videos on my second channel that I can promise would have 100K views if they were on my main channel, which is the YouTuber tier list and the Speedrun Dust 2.
Yeah.
And you know that because they've got like 10K views a piece almost. It's like, okay, it's like 7K and 8K. On a channel that when they were released had under 3,000 subs, which basically means these videos were fucking hot fire.
Yeah.
Absolutely fucking banger videos. Like this YouTuber tier list, it opened up for the first like 12 hours. It had a 30% click-through rate with a 10-minute, 30-second watch time. That is like unheard of. Sure. That's even my fucking 4 levels of movement video, when it's got like nearly 1 million views, never had that much click rate. It like opened up at 20%. It just stayed at 20% for a while. So, you know,
while we're on the subject, actually, I had a question for you, because this is something Squid and I have been trying to figure out for a while. Is we're wondering why Haka's videos are loved by the YouTube algorithm so much. Because
are they?
Yeah, I mean, he pops off usually. I'm pretty sure. You can maybe look him up while I'm talking.
Sorry, you were saying you started the word "you."
Oh, did I get muted by Discuck?
No, you started the word "you" and then I cut you off when I said "are they."
No, I was just wondering if you had any idea why his stuff was.
I'm actually going around. I meant to ask Hawk. I'm trying to figure out, because nobody tells you this information. I think it's important to have like a group chat with YouTubers in it. Talking about, hey, like, what do you think of this thumbnail? What do you think of this video? I actually want to try and get something together with that with CSGO YouTubers, because there's really no roadmap. Sure. And the problem is that I said this in a podcast before. I'll say it again. The problem is that everyone is really scared to give away their information because they feel like they don't want to give an advantage to someone else. Sure. That maybe, like, if I tell someone else something they didn't already know, well, if they don't tell me what I didn't know, then their content gets better and mine doesn't improve at all. And while that may be true, I feel you have to also just have the self-confidence that you are better than just the attributes, just the algorithm tricks that you have to have the confidence in that. And I think a lot of people don't. So I'm trying to like get around, like ask people what their click-through rates are and all this type of thing, but I'm thinking I'm going to start like a group chat, and Hawk is someone that I meant to ask what his click-through rates are, what his normal watch time is, because it's going to vary from channel to channel, but his videos do.
It looks like his last one didn't do as well, but some of the other ones that go regularly seem to be going above his sub count. So I was curious as to why.
Yeah, any channel that gets video views regularly above their sub count is doing really well. I think he's just hit a niche. I think he's just hit a niche that Elma Putty has been missing for a while, and he's hit a niche, and Launders has hit a niche as well. But Launders are not the same. Launders is replacement Thorin, because Thorin's not putting out, I feel like, as much content as he did once upon a time.
He's also not doing visual content, which might be a different niche.
Yeah, so Launders is Thorin, a Thorin replacement, and Hawka is an Elma Putty replacement. And I think Hawka is more dry than Elma Putty, but he's, some of his recent videos, he's done a really good job, I think, at least compared to some of his older videos, that it flows pretty well.
Yep.
The thing about Elma Putty is, like, it almost felt with Elma Putty like a visual essay, where, like, they always tell you with essays, you end one paragraph with an ode almost to, like, the next paragraph. So you end a paragraph where you, like, with a word that you repeat at the start of the next paragraph, so it keeps people interested. It feels like Elma Putty does that exact thing, and I've tried to bring that in, but I don't do it very naturally. I would guess he does it naturally, but maybe he puts in the effort and he actually really does intend to try and do that. But in some of my videos, I've been literally trying to do exactly that. It's tough though. It's tough.
It's definitely a complex game, and to your point about nobody really sharing notes, sharing with the class about what they got, and maybe being a little scared to. It makes sense why everybody would almost. The problem is, it's almost like trying to reverse engineer a path to success, or engineer one from the get go, because you have no other examples and nobody else is talking to you. So it does make sense.
I mean,
I
just
on that.
The thing is, getting it started is the hard part. Like, getting that information from, like, getting a few people in a group.
Yeah.
Because people are going to be worried that other people will steal their stuff.
Yeah.
However, if you go in a group chat of other YouTubers and someone tells you something that's really cool that they learned, and then you take that, then you are probably going to share something really cool that you learn with that group chat, and then everyone is gaining from it. Because personally, I don't know, maybe this is, I don't know what type of mindset this really is. I just, it's really fucking hard to find any level of a roadmap for YouTube's success or YouTube sponsorships or how YouTube should work, what a thumbnail should look like.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fucking expert by any means. I've just done it for a while, so I know a few little things, right? And it's tough because a lot of the stuff that you learn is stuff that's like, you don't actually actively know it. It's like, I know something, so if I look at a thumbnail, it's going to look wrong, but I wouldn't be able to just tell you why or what, I'll just be able to think like that. Maybe this looks a little bit better. Maybe this looks a little bit worse. It's hard to have a real like a way to vocalize the concepts. But I'm hoping I can get some people together that'll be down for that type of thing. Because I've always been really of the opinion that, like, if I see a YouTuber I like that makes good content, I almost always reach out to them and I tell them, you can always hit me up if you got any questions. Like, I don't know everything, but I'd like to help out.
Sure.
Because it was really fucking rough for me. There was nobody helping out. So I'd like to, like, extend the ladder down behind,
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it's one of those things that can be quite gratifying when I'm not in the business of YouTube, but when I do my level design stuff and then somebody comes up to me and is like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Here's my map. Can you help me? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Let me take a look at it. Like that, when they next churn out something significantly better, like, or when you can see a path to improvement, it's quite gratifying to know that you had some small part in it. And beyond
I don't like
that.
I don't like that as much where they literally come to you for help, because I guess I kind of have the Thorin mentality where it's like, show that you're willing to try, and I will be the first person to try and help you when you're struggling and currently trying. I don't want to, like, have someone where it's like, I've never made a YouTube video before, and I'm just
they
like,
have to have made something of themselves by default.
Yeah, exactly.
You can step in and maybe correct some things that have already been developed. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I've been considering making a channel on, like, I'm almost certainly going to make a video on my second channel at some point, how to make CSGO content. Because I've made one, but it's kind of a little bit more advanced than...
Was this the one that you said was on your Patreon or something to that effect?
Yeah. I give it out to people if they ask for it, but nobody asks for it because nobody knows it exists.
Yeah, sure. And
but yeah, I've been definitely thinking about adding it to or just making one, because I think there is no intro. And the thing that people really don't understand is they make a few videos and they're sad that their videos don't do well. And this is just again, I don't really have necessarily any evidence behind this, but my stance is that in order to have a video pop off and actually matter that it pops off, it needs to be your 10th video or your 20th video, because everyone's seen a video and they're like, damn, that's a great video. Now on to the next one. Like, you need to have a video that's sick, and then they're like, hey, let's check out more shit from this guy. Wow, he makes a lot of really good videos. So I'm going to subscribe. And now I've seen a bunch of his videos. So now he's going to always pop up on my sub feed because I've shown that I like his videos. Whereas if you just see one, your new videos aren't even going to pop up on their sub feed, even if they do sub. They also have no reason to sub, and they have no reason for you to be their favorite creator because you got one good video. Well, fuck off. Like, it doesn't matter.
Dime a dozen almost, yeah. So there's a number of different things.
This episode has gone down a weird direction.
This has, yeah. I thought it was just going to be a quick digression, but that's okay. One of the other things that we don't have a whole lot of information on out there is Relog's hiring practices. Oh, wait, we do actually have some information on this. We know that if you have the handle something casts and you join a Discord server, the link of which is readily available if you know where to look, they will just give you access to FunSpark Ulti and a bunch of other tournaments where you can randomly be subbed in when other casters don't show up to work that day because they're ridiculously overworked. So this is what brings us to the subject of the video that I last released on the channel with the help of Squid, who put it all together. It's, of course, the sneaking onto $1 million esports broadcast video, which Vu, you consulted on the thumbnail and on the video as well. I wanted to get your reaction overall to the final sort of cut of it, and insofar as, I don't know if you actually watched the final upload, not a whole lot changed, but was curious as to your thought of the whole thing, the whole escapade that happened here. What are your thoughts?
I mean, it's a good video. That's what it is.
Okay.
That's a banger video. The thing is, it was a little bit, I would say it's a little bit all over the place.
Sure.
As in, like, it's a video with a funny title, with a funny tagline, with a funny intention, but it's also serious.
It has a bit of hard-hitting, not necessarily journalism, but there's some sort of editorializing there. Yeah, I can see what you're talking about, where the message at the end kind of almost hits you.
Yeah, so it's a little bit all over the place. Like, is it an S tier video? If I was ranking that video, I'd say it's an A tier video.
Sure.
Like, it's good. It's definitely a good video. I watched the whole thing. It's like very clickable. It's a good video, but I would say it's not S tier. I don't know if I got to think of an S tier video. It's hard to think of an S tier video. But I wouldn't.
Especially in the same
there
genre,
can be better.
Yeah, I know.
There can be better, because there can be videos that are like a little bit less, like, where it's more true to the title, where it's like
the core identity of the piece.
Yeah, exactly. The identity of the video is a little bit, and that video even could have been made a little bit more in that way, but still had the same hit. Like, it could have been a little bit more true to the DomCasts thing and keeping the DomCasts narrative going as to why DomCasts would want to sneak on the broadcast, and maybe even DomCasts is there, like, here's why I want to sneak on this broadcast. Although it would be fucking annoying hearing that voice for too long. The voice is funny as like a little bit, right?
And that's why we had to make sure to cut everything down to distill the best.
Yeah, exactly. Because the voice, I'm sure, would be annoying as fuck after a little while. But there could be, maybe there's ways to like have turned that video into a little bit more of a consistent narrative, but it was still a banger of a video. Like, I liked the video.
Sure. And what do you think of the fact that these people are hiring casters like Dom, casters that don't exist?
I mean, that is pretty bad. Yeah. And someone was like, what are they supposed to do? Just like not hire any new casters? It's like, no, just like do a little bit of research into the casters that you do hire, maybe, like just a little bit.
They didn't know his Twitter until he told them, and he didn't even. Yeah. Okay, I'll really reveal some small tidbits. We'll go into more detail on this. We're gonna do, Squid and I are gonna do a show together later on. Spoiler, but the thing that happened here was, as the show was getting started and the producer was setting up the lower third with the name, he was like, "What is your Twitter?" And he just goes, "Yes." That was his reaction. And he goes, "No, what is your Twitter handle?" And Dom just says, "Yes, the same." And so he just puts @DomCasts, which obviously doesn't even, I think it's an Overwatch caster or something. It's not even a fucking CS caster. So it was not even a real account. So the fact that he was able to just do that was pretty intense. The whole thing was just goofy. There was one element that didn't make it into the video because it didn't get caught on camera. But basically, the producer set him up And God, you've dealt with producers, Vu, so you know what I'm talking about here, where they set you up and they kind of whisper in your ear now and then, but they usually mute their microphones when they're not talking to you.
Oh man, the worst cast I've ever had was because my mic was like not working correctly, and a producer talked to me, and it was like the first time a producer talked to me while I was mid sentence, and like probably from a producer standpoint, don't talk to your caster when he's mid sentence. Maybe like that's really like it fucking wrecked me, dude.
Yeah.
It was possibly got to be the worst broadcast moment ever on the fucking MDL broadcast. I think it might have even been in like the semifinals or the finals or something. It was bad.
And you just hit with the stutter like, what?
And then I
Something
like respond. Like I think I started to respond, and then I was like, oh shit, they can hear me. Like it's if I'm fucking done a million casts, and this has happened a bunch of times before, that doesn't happen. But there's no way I hear someone talking to me while I'm putting out a thought. There's no way that works. That does not work. Like it really just does. Like I'm still mid thought, thinking it through, figuring it out, and then
apparently that's what everybody.
It was not perfect, but also it was really like it was. I would have been able to handle that a bit better if I had experience. It was just like the first time, and it just fucking wrecked me, man.
So this is essentially what happened to Dom, because Dom starts doing his intro where he says, "Hello and welcome everybody to the Fun Sparks." And as he says that, the producer goes and mutes his mic. That's like the best. Like that didn't go through on the broadcast or get recorded, but that would have been the fucking like, come on, that's the introduction that we all needed to hear. Unfortunately, did not get captured. So that was some little background tidbits on that video. I thought it was a pretty hilarious way to own that particular company and show that they have no fucking like protocol whatsoever. Because what also didn't make it into the video is that there were at least three notifications from Baja, or Baya, however you're supposed to pronounce that guy's name, who said,
what was his name?
The head of operations, Baya, Baja. So he added DomCasts several times on several occasions saying, "Can you stand in?" So they weren't even going to put him on a broadcast. They were going to have him stand in for a duo, which is supposed to be reserved for a higher tier of caster. Because until you prove that you're not complete dog shit, they make you do solo casts where you can continue to be complete dog shit, apparently, for most people.
Okay.
That's just how their tier system works, their internal caster tier system. So the way that they handled that was basically like somebody didn't show up. By the way, the games that they're casting are like back in the day, it was like Cloud9 when they still existed. It was like fucking big. It was some of these like actual teams, like legit teams. And these casters who were working at like the perennial tier 3, tier 2 events or whatever, just don't get out of bed for some of these events. So there's a bunch of no-shows, and DomCast gets added like, you know, hey, can you come do it? Can you come do it? Like, they didn't even vet this guy. They literally did no research. So that was just hilarious to me. And now, obviously, there's that Reddit thread that was up top throughout all of today that maybe some people saw, where Squid did the math and figured out that you actually can get $2.7 million faster by working at McDonald's than working for Grid. So that was pretty good. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah. I know I caught that one. I caught it when it was right at the beat, like just posted. Those ones always get like fucking get a lot of traction.
Yeah. Reddit is a confusing fucking beast in that respect. Where sometimes,
well, the thing about Reddit, like I'm gonna give you, if you really want to do well on Reddit consistently, just get a bunch of your friends that upvote your post every time you post it. Yeah. They go to reddit.com/globaloffensive /globaloffensive/new, and then they click upvote. Works flawlessly. What I do is I have my brother do it. My brother upvotes every single one of my posts.
There you go. So but
he's on the same IP, which is a little bit suspect, because that's how that one fucking the spare, like the crows guy, the fucking jackdaw guy, got banned because he had a bunch of accounts that would downvote other people that were responding to him. Because the first 10
you're talking about the League of Legends guy, aren't you?
No. This is like a science guy. He was a biologist or something, or biology student. Okay. And he got fucking perma-banned from Reddit because he was like really well known on Reddit. I think he even got interviewed on some fucking news because he was so well known. But he would log into like 5 or 6 accounts and just downvote people and upvote himself when they disagreed with him, which is a big no-no. But I figure, I mean, it's my brother, right? He's on the same IP, but like if it's one account, like it's his account, you know? It's a little bit suspect. I mean, maybe there could be something to be worried about. I wouldn't log into a different account myself. That's like, you don't do that. Definitely don't do that. But I think, you know,
you're helping
if it's one other, I think there's reason to believe that there are more than one person in one location, you know, like unless you got like 50 people, that's a little bit fucking suspect, you know.
Some fucking clown car ass house, yeah. So let's talk about some more clown car aspects. One of the things that came out as a result of the ownage that this video was against Relog and Grid was there was a specific caster who decided to start tweeting stuff that was ill-advised on his behalf because I basically said, wow, Dom got paid less than 24 hours after the video came out and after his invoice was sent. And I was like, that's incredible, because I've gotten paid like months late. People in other spaces that are much higher up than me have gotten paid months late. People at the top of the fucking chain don't get paid a day later. Like, nobody does. It's just never happens. Unheard of in esports. Maybe players from some tournaments or something. Never casters, though. Never casters. And the other aspect of this that obviously gets me is that when somebody comes out and says like, oh, wow, this is record time paid in a day. That's crazy considering the situation. And somebody else replies, actually, I myself, a sample size of 1, got paid sort of on time. So that means that you're wrong about this tweet. That's when you just get punched in the face in a video game, dude. Like, that's where I virtually find you and punch you in the head. So you really got to be on your guard with this kind of stuff. You can't just be like tweeting out nonsense and then like think a little bit about, well, who else might be unpaid? Who else might have commented to me privately that they were unpaid for long periods of time? Think about all of the other stories that I've broken about Grid. So yeah, just some thoughts for all of you other casters who might be inclined to respond to my tweets, because at least bring some fucking receipts, please. At least don't just like say, oh yeah, well, I was paid, so it's fine. And then one of the things that I had said when owning this man was that you should probably check with your other casters before you try to tweet in defense of a company that abuses your casters and also participates in rigged brackets. And now I will elaborate on this. This is what I was getting angry about the whole time, Vu. Remember when I sent you this message? Slowly getting angrier and angrier? Well, you may know that P.E.K.K.A. with Fun plus Phoenix, that's a man, right? Yeah, hold on to your Red Bull, dude, because you're gonna. Dude,
I just fucking got my beard caught in my Red Bull, dude. That was painful.
Oh, that's a different kind. I thought you just
that fucking hurt, dude. That hurt, man.
Oh, there's some more pain coming your way.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah. Let's hear this. So, P.E.K.K.A. is the GM of Fun plus Phoenix, both CSGO and Valorant. You know what P.E.K.K.A. is also? He's a board member at Relog Media. You know what Relog Media do? They run tournaments for CSGO teams. And in one of the tournaments that they ran, I believe it was Snow Sweet Snow number 2, they had Fun plus Phoenix make it to playoffs. And they even had Fun plus Phoenix win the whole tournament. Wow. A tournament where the general manager of the CSGO team who won the event is also a board member of the TO that put on the event. I wonder what might have happened in this event where Fun plus Phoenix got a favorable seed for quarterfinals. Well, you could just chalk that up to chance. It's possible that it's not the case, that there was some actual skullfuckery going on behind the scenes, but I will just say that I have confirmation that there was skullfuckery behind the scenes, and I'm not actually saying that P.E.K.K.A. orchestrated this. I don't have confirmation of whether or not it was that or it was just them helping out their homie because he's obviously on the Relog Media group. Maybe it was implied. All we know is that there was a conflict of interest here. Obviously, that's inarguable. And I have confirmation from inside sources that say that there was actual bracket fuckery. At which point you have to say, wow, this industry is a pile of shit, because nobody went to bat for these guys. Nobody said anything about this. And certainly nobody said anything about whatever team faced them in the quarterfinals when they could have actually won. So the specific case here was that Forza was on the other side of the bracket. They were supposed to go up against Fun plus Phoenix, and they had a positive win ratio, we'll say, or a good chance to win. But instead they were swapped to the other side of the bracket in the quarterfinals. And at this point,
what's the reason for that? Like, what's the official stance for that?
There was no official stance. They just announced the quarterfinal bracket, and the teams were on opposite sides of what they should have been.
That's interesting.
The groups. So you can go look at Snow Sweet Snow number 2 for information on that one. So yeah, just wanted to throw that one out there. We can move on now. But
well, that does actually remind me of exactly why conflicts of interest are really important not to have, because Virtus Pro is playing in a RMR event with the same owner, like the same parent or company, I think it is, right? Or is it
that runs Epicenter, you mean?
That runs Epic League or whatever.
Epic LAN, I think, is the
yeah. It's the same parent org, right? Or is it?
I don't know the specific details of this case.
They're in that. Yeah, they're in that. Now imagine for a second, Flashpoint owned NIP or
Anonymo or something,
or Anonymo. Imagine you could not have an outcome of that where it isn't said to be bullshit. Like you could not have a reasonable, you could not apply the rules the way they're supposed to be applied fairly, because even if your telling of the rules has a not you own Anonymo and your telling of the rules says Anonymo wins. Well, nobody can trust that there wasn't some fuckery there. And if your telling of the rules is the opposite, well, then you still get fucked, because they're like, oh, well, of course they couldn't deal with the community backlash of supporting their, like, you are incentivized almost, even if you believe or you own is in the right and should be should get the benefit, I guess. Even if you believe that, you have to conflict your business interests with getting fucked by the community. Like, which one is it? Even if you genuinely believe Anonymo should get the benefit, I might even consider, like, I might even be pressured to consider giving it to NIP, because I don't want a community backlash, and that's all what organizers want. All they need is the community to be on their side.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why conflicts of interest are a huge fucking deal, is because just imagine fucking this Flashpoint situation happened with Epic Land. I know what you're thinking. Ha ha ha, it would never happen outside of Flashpoint. I think this could happen to almost any TO, based on what I've said. Is I think it's a communication issue, likely fueled by Valve's ruling that the team has to be alone in the room. I think it's a communication issue. I think this could happen to ESL. I think this could happen to anyone. And so any conflict of interest would have made that. Imagine how much worse that would be.
Well, I mean, I've already got one for you right here. 1xBet sponsors ESL and Navi. There you go. That's all you need.
Yeah, that one's... I don't know. I would have to really have a stop and thought about where to draw the line on what conflicts of interest are necessary.
Well, it's more than just a sponsorship for Navi, I should mention. I mean, for ESL, it's their official partner for betting, basically. So you can easily see where something could actually happen there, where it's like everything goes through them, and they also sponsor some teams. So, I mean, even if you just wanted to change some of the odds or something to that effect, if that was somehow possible, it's made a lot easier. Or you can see where you would actually want to rig it in favor of or against a team that was also sponsored by the same betting company, a team that was sponsored by a rival betting company. So it's not beyond a shadow of a doubt that could happen, or maybe even has happened. But it's just one other layer of unfortunate incest.
Yeah.
Perhaps unfortunate phrasing as well. I will say, beyond that, the other thing that I wanted to actually talk about with you is device on the op on NIP, because this is a rare time where we'll actually talk about the game. You believe that? We're going to talk about device playing and shooting instead of tweeting. So he actually kind of sucked in that rematch against Anonymo, even though he had presumably better internet. What do we think about his debut so far? Because I felt pretty underwhelmed that they lost to Anonymo to begin with, regardless of network issues. But I could sort of understand it as a very disappointing debut of their giant $1 million man. But it doesn't look like it got much better afterwards. I mean, I guess they did just 2-0 FPX as we were recording this, but...
Yeah, I mean, I thought in the original showing he looked pretty solid. Like there was definitely
he looked better in the original one, yeah.
Yeah, I think there was some communication problems in the original showing. Everything wasn't ironed out perfectly. However, I think he looked individually pretty good. In the rematch, though, yeah, I mean, here's the thing: doesn't he have a problem that's like seriously like affected by stress? Like, I can believe that he was under a ton of pressure to win that game, because just imagine the fucking community memes if they had lost that fucking series on the rematch. If they had
pretty
even lost.
Close, dude.
Yeah, I know. Imagine how fucking embarrassing it would have been to lose that rematch, right? So I can imagine he was under a shit ton of pressure, and maybe that call caused whatever problem he has physically to flare up. I can't remember if it's IBS. I think Get Right was IBS, right? And
I think Device has some other intestinal issues specifically as well.
Yeah, it might be like whatever the gluten one is, or I don't know, who the fuck knows. It's one of those.
Or something. Yeah, I don't know which one it is. But...
he's got one of those problems. So I could believe that maybe it flared up in that scenario. Or I mean, honestly, like the theory that it's like choke Astralis, I don't think that is completely unreasonable to theorize, because that is probably one of the highest pressure games you could be in for reasons outside of just the importance of the match, which I feel like you can definitely kind of like get away from that thought about how important this match is when it comes to like a late series in a tournament or something, like it's really important that you're not thinking of how important it is. But then when there's different pressures that are like, well, you know, community pressure, org pressure, like your org is probably like, dude, we can't lose this. Like this would be so embarrassing. Like there's a lot of extra pressures. So I'm personally I'm fairly like forgiving for that performance, honestly.
Okay, so we got a little bit of a vote of, you know, just give him a pass on the back there. I haven't watched the FPX series, obviously, so I won't comment on his performance more recently. I guess we could theoretically pull up the HLTV page or whatever, but it's not massively important. I'll say one of the things that I was hoping for out of this roster is a better start, and precisely because, like, Device did an okay job talking about how, you know, NIP was 10 steps ahead of Astralis, like all this crazy shit when he first got signed. And the problem is, like, we don't really get the opportunity to see what he was talking about at this event. And maybe that's partially the result of Flashpoint fucking some stuff up outside of it. Like, there have been problems besides this whole shit show with the rematch. But I feel like Anonymo are not a team, like, you can't count any team out in the online era. Sure, that's like a truism we've heard, but Anonymo don't look like they're massive contenders. I mean, did you have any thoughts on Anonymo specifically on the other side of this match?
I mean, I've only watched a bit of Anonymo.
Sure.
I haven't gotten much of Anonymo.
Yeah, I've only
but
seen what they've done at Flashpoint specifically.
That's okay. One of the things that I really think is a big reason that you can't have played a fucking rematch is Anonymo was going into that match. I think Anonymo was looked at as a not a joke, but not a serious contender. However, I think post that match, people were realizing that Anonymo, while they're not a top team, they are a team, I think, that will be very capable of taking games and series off of teams like NIP, you know, big mouse sports, like those, you know, top 5, top 10 teams. They'll be able to take a series, you know, they'll be able to take maps for sure and potentially series off of those types of teams. And so I think that, again, this is one of those problems. If NIP is underestimating their opponent and they lose, they're not going to underestimate them the second time around, right? And that's something that you can't get that back. That doesn't come back. It's gone once it's gone. You know, maybe they had some anti-stratting. Like, for example, Mix did an interview with Note.
Yep.
In the interview, he talked about a anti-strat he had for Envy, the old Envy, where when one of their players on Overpass on T side, when one of their players threw a Molly short B, you know, you throw a Molly short B to open them pretty much every round. One of them would throw it deep and one of them would throw it shallow. And when it was thrown shallow, they were always going A, or, you know, what, it could be backwards, but whatever. And when it was thrown shallow, they were always going A. And when it was thrown deep, they were usually going for a connector B split. Envy probably would have watched back that match and realized, hey, as soon as we threw this Molly, they were moving their setup every time. We shouldn't do that again. You can't roll back history and make that fucking not have happened, right?
Exactly.
So that's why a rematch is such a fucking, I wouldn't have called it a travesty, but it's not completely crazy to call it a travesty.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
It's just complete bullshit. It should never have fucking happened. But yeah, I mean, I think Anonymo is the team that's going to be, I think they're going to be, what's the way to describe them?
Will they
They're going to be a spoiler team, I think.
Okay.
I think they'll be a spoiler team. I think when Snacks has had flashes of his like old brilliance on this team, it's not consistent, right? It's definitely far from consistent. But like if you look at it, I'm looking at his stats right now. 1.36, 0.9, 1.34, 1.39, 0.9, 1.42, 0.6, 1.15, 0.9, 0.5, 1.3, 1.4. Like it's just, if he's on, they're gonna be able to take games off of even the best teams. So I think they're gonna be a team that plays as a spoiler.
Yeah, and maybe to second fiddle to him specifically as well. Like if he's on, he's on. I mean, I guess he's calling now too, which is a bit different. So it's kind of weird when you see what would we call it? We would call that the heartbeat graph of fucking rating right there. So up and down. Yeah. I'll say my take on Anonymo is that when they struggled against the hyenas, which is literally, like, we could talk about them in a second too. They're a fucking, you'd talk about travesties. They're a fucking mix of Danes that should never have even been in this event. I can't believe that North, his corpse limped back up and started fucking hobbling into the RMR.
Oh, this is the team. Insane. This is the team that like they just picked up three players from X North and
yeah. So
It's a little bit.
talk about travesties. We'll talk about them in a sec. But when they struggled against them, I thought like surely there's like something missing here then. But it might have just been one of those things that you were talking about where Snacks is up and down. If he's down, they're probably out, or they're going to have a much harder time getting it across the finish line. We'll say. So again, I'm saying this without looking at the stats, but I would say that Snacks seems to be like, we'll say, a talismanic player, right? He's the one who has all of the energy, and he's also the caller, and he's the one who his stats seem to correlate with them winning. So when you put all that together, he seems to be their MVP, regardless of whether or not he's the MVP of the series. He's the most valuable player on that team for that team. We'll see if he can pull them out. He's certainly the most veteran player of the team. And you know what? There was that Twitch clip of him doing the chest bumps and stuff. Like, I'm just saying, you might want to do that away from any of the expensive equipment in case he hits you with enough force to eject you from the building, because I'm not sure there's much that can withstand that man. He's quite
Is Snacks more veteran than Innocent? I feel like Innocent has been around just as long as Snacks. It's just that
Snacks is veteran in the sense that he's veteran at the top level.
He was worse,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
I've got Innocent stats going back to 2013.
Yeah, he might actually be technically more veteran than Snacks. Yeah, I don't know. But the bottom line is he's the guy he's been to the top and he's now coming back down and he wants to climb again.
Yeah.
We'll see if he can. You know, he's probably not. I guess he's only 26 or something. So it's not like it's not impossible for him to make it back. We've seen other players do it with we'll say worse outlooks or closer to the finish line of life. Obviously, RPK up until recently was okay at a serviceable, maybe poor, but still able to sometimes hack it. He had some inconsistent showings himself over on Vitality. I want to talk a little bit about the Double Pony team, because this is a team that I actually did a bit of casting on back at EDC. And hey, by the way, now I can say this. They finally paid me. Thanks, guys. It only took you fucking 3 months. Idiots. Anyway, we could talk about a Double Pony. We could say those guys actually seem pretty legit, to be honest. I mean, they lost 2 16-13s against Astralis. Those are tough games to lose, especially against a team that is kind of walking wounded. At least that's how everybody's characterizing the new Astralis. I think Double Pony have a real chance at being basically like a higher spoiler team than Anonymo, even in that sense. Like maybe they could even surpass the spoiler label, move it up a little bit further up. What do you make of this team? Have you seen much of them?
I've been pretty impressed by what I've seen. I watched a decent amount of the Astralis series, and neither team could get anything going on T side. Like, if
that seems to be a real staple of the new Astralis.
Scorelines, Vertigo 13-2, 11-3. CT sides getting 13 and 11 rounds
on Vertigo too, like the most notoriously T-sided map of them all. Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, this is like
not a good look.
Yeah, the only person on the entire series that went positive on T side, I believe, was Magisk on either team.
Yeah,
that is really bad for Astralis. Like, what?
He wasn't even. He was actually their worst rated player for a while before Device left. So
yeah. No, like me when we had Thorin on, this was like a moment where it was like, yeah, we both noticed this, that Magisk was really dropping the ball before Device left, like for the majority of the beginning of 2021, the first few months. I think from the early December, I think, until like maybe a month now, hard to say exactly. He was playing really poorly, in that he's their main guy. He's their go-to guy on CT side that he's got to anchor down. He's going to play pin on Inferno. He's going to play other important spots that I can't think of off the top of my. Listen, man, you got me on the spot here. Okay, he's gonna play, pin on. He plays the important spots where you need a really solid anchor, and he would.
Wasn't he also barrels on Overpass too, as like an example of another one, or something?
I can't remember exactly. I
remember
that
him
wasn't
on
a map
Overpass
I think I really looked
not
into.
Managing to multi-frag nearly as many times as he should have been. So that's my memory anyway, to help you. Hopefully.
Yeah, Ivy on Train. Ivy on Train's another pivotal
Train,
position.
what's that map? We got to talk about that later too.
Anyways, what you want from your anchor player is they always get one and they survive a while. And a good portion of the time they get two. If you can get two, you've done a really good job. Right? Basically, as you survive. That's the important part. You get two, instantly die, you did your job. You get one and survive, you did your job. You get two and survive, you did a really good job. You did an A+ job. And I went through every gun versus gun round. I mentioned this, every gun versus gun round on CT side Inferno for the entire for 4 months in a row. he got one round where he got like more than just like the expected kill, which is one. You catch a guy on the side, you get the one kill. He had quite a few rounds where he didn't get as many as he should have, and like basically he was only ever getting one. That was all he was ever
He was
doing.
1 or 9,
and
basically. Yeah.
yeah, and that's not what you're expecting out of Magisk. Magisk is usually doing more than his job in those positions. He's getting 2 and surviving. He's getting 1, delaying, and then getting a second a little bit later, right? Like, that's what you're expecting from him, and he's kind of pulled it back. Like, I really do think there might be something to this idea that people, when they go to IGL, sometimes they just fucking lose it when they stop IGLing. Like, they're just not the same. Because after stopping IGLing, Magisk had one really stellar event, and then he shit the bed for like 3 or 4 months, and now he's kind of back at it, you know?
You can only wonder what this Astralis core would look like if they didn't have to play a second fiddle to the fucking org, where they just so can I please have some rest? I need some legally like allowed rest. Like,
I mean, if they can
rest.
do well with Bubsky on the roster,
Sure.
I feel like there's got to be something to it. Like the Astralis, there's got to be something more than meets the eye, you know?
What do you make of people trying to reinvent the narrative now that actually the core of Astralis did not include device? Because now I've seen this on some broadcasts.
I have not seen that. It's just a ridiculous take.
So,
it's
some
the most ridiculous
analysis
take.
desks are like, the core of Glaive, Magisk, like Glaive, Zipnix, and Dupree, or some shit like basically not including device.
Here's the thing: Astralis was like, they didn't play the same CS. I'm not going to ever pretend they played the same CS. But if you go back to like 2015, they were still playing calculated CS in a time when people weren't playing calculated CS, and they were the bane to Fnatic's existence.
Yeah,
if Fnatic played TSM at the time, if Fnatic played TSM, they would lose. But TSM would never win the tournament. They would always go out in semis and all that, right? And that's when TSM, I believe, had Kerrigan. I think TSM had Kerrigan, right? And Glaive was like 2017.
Glaive was after they rebranded to Astralis, I believe.
Yeah, so they were already playing calculated, smart CS. You know, they were already playing kind of Astralis CS in 2015. Of course, again, things changed a little bit with Glaive. You know, we adjusted them a bit. I think they added a different dimension they might not have already had. But they were already playing like that with their old core. So to say that, the core is something other than what it actually is, which I believe should be Dupree, Zipnix, and Device, right? To say it's something else is just not true. And it's just taking away from the fact that core did things before they had Glaive that defined that core the same way you see them today. You could see the inkling of what Astralis turned into back in 2014, 2015, back when they were even Dignitas,
Yeah, well, it's just another chapter in the book full of like ridiculously forced broadcast narratives. Like when we had VP, the Russian VP, by the way, they were like, these guys were historic back in 2014. Like, I can't believe the VP organization is back in the finals. Like, what the fuck? Gambit won a major, didn't you know? Like, what? There's different fucking players. Hello, like 2020, please. 2021, please. Like, shit, man. Like, holy fuck, man. That got me so angry. There's another thing to get slowly angry about.
I don't know. I think the one thing that this podcast has is that I'm not afraid to say what I think when I think someone's playing bad. Like, I'm confident enough in my own analysis that I will tell you when I think someone's playing like shit, and I will just like fucking say it. I think a lot of the time, I mean, it's a branding thing to some extent where like, Maniac, for example, he's really nice, but he knows the analysis. He's confident enough to say someone's bad, but he's got a brand to kind of uphold to some extent. The way branding works is you take your personality and then you add 30% on top.
Sure.
And that's your brand.
Probably
your brand is your personality. Your brand is your personality plus 30%. And then you just try not to counter it. Because the thing is, people exist and have multitudes, right? Like people are not just one trait, but you try and you up your most obvious trait by like 30%, and then you try and like not counter it by being like excessively rude once in a while if you're the nice guy, or like I feel like if you're the mean guy, if you're like the tell it how it is guy, you can definitely be nice sometimes. But I feel like if you're the nice guy, there is no like, oh, here's my moment to be a fucking cunt. Like I don't think that moment doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
Anyways,
when Maniac said in matchmaking that Purple wasn't trying very hard, I had lost all respect for the guy. But then he had an apology tweet, and everything was fine.
But I think a few too many broadcast talent to some extent are trying to be a little bit too nice.
Okay.
I mean, understandably, like I can't even blame them for that because the community is fucked.
Do you,
But I
do you
feel
think
like
some of this is a reaction to Pimp being fucking harangued over being
it might be.
Yeah.
It's possible because it's hard to tell. Can you tell which part of this guy is him playing himself up, and which part is him playing, you know, maybe a little bit of the stuff now to like continue the brand,
Yeah.
and which of it is like just him, you know, this is how this guy is as a person. He's just like a really nice guy, and you know, he doesn't want to be very critical. You know, which part is which, and you can't really separate the two. So to try and say something is someone's brand, or as people have done to me on fucking Reddit, say that I'm just trying to create controversy. You can't know what is me and what is me playing it up a little bit.
Sure.
And I'll give you a spoiler. I don't play it up that much, honestly. Like I don't play things up that much. I generally am just kind of fucking very loud. I'm a fucking loudmouth idiot, really. That's just
Sure.
me. But you can't really push that onto them. You know, maybe some people that aren't super negative are confident, and they are confident if they have a negative take. They just don't want to, you know, they're going to let the more negative people take that take and run with it because that makes more sense, right? Like if I've got a negative take and, you know, it's like Maniac has a negative take and Pimp has a negative take, Maniac's, you know, it's a little bit overboard to both go with the negative take. So
He might
one of you
even
tries to
give
go
Pimp the
positive,
take.
you know.
He might even say it
Yeah.
or whatever. Like maybe you can bring
Exactly.
this up.
That might also actually just happen where it's just like, for example, like, you know, there might be a video I want to make on my YouTube channel, but it doesn't suit my YouTube channel. So I tell someone else to make it. I give them the idea because I think there's a good idea. Why not someone else make it? Then they'll make it and they'll do well off of it, right? That might even happen. So it's hard to say if they're, you know, if that's their personality or if they're scared or anything like that. I think it does take a specific personality to be willing to go hard and go very negative because you,
Sure.
just as a person, you don't want players to hate you. That's going to make your job a lot harder. You don't want the fans to be mad at you. And unfortunately, the heels, the guys that are negative, are always the guys that are hated. Like Thorin and Pimp are hated because people don't understand that a broadcast needs to have conflict. Otherwise, it's not entertaining. The most entertaining parts of any broadcast are the parts where they're fucking disagreeing with each other and they're both stating their opinion and they both have good, like reasonable opinions. And then they banter a bit and it's like, well, you've only got this opinion because you play in Denmark and you were never good enough to get on Astralis or some shit. Like you just hit them with like some fucking banter. Like that's the most entertaining part of a broadcast. If you're both going like, you know, if you're both going, yeah, I really agree with you. And yeah, I really agree with that. Like, unfortunately, what happened when I was on DreamHack with Maniac, because he kept making fucking good points. That's not an entertaining broadcast, okay? Why haven't I been back on DreamHack? It's because it wasn't. I don't know, because they don't have a slot, but it wasn't entertaining. Okay, it wasn't the most entertaining broadcast of all time because we're just agreeing with each other all the time. It's much better to have like counterpoints.
Well, I will say as well, maybe you can answer this question too, Vu, because when we were watching your DreamHack stuff, Squid and I were wondering, like, you were very, like, reserved, it felt like, compared to what you are on here. Like, you're just fucking loose cannon, just go XLR, like, just, you know, whatever. So, like, the fact that you were just like, yes, I can see your point there, Maniac. Like, you know, that was very interesting to us that you didn't go off.
I'm gonna be honest. If you watch the first DreamHack I was on, I think that's a much better representation.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I think I only saw the one with Maniac, so it's probably what you're talking
because
about.
I was given a lot more time to prepare for the first one, and it was more basically for the second one. I'm on for 2 days. I think I was on for 2 days. And so it's really tough and not only was I on for 2 days, I was on for European and NA, right? Yes. I was on for both. So there's like 16 teams I have to prepare for 2 days of content. It's very hard to actually get, you know, I put in a lot of effort into the first one. I put in days and days going into these teams and making sure I had all the information. And I put in effort for the second one as well. But when there's more teams and you're on for less time, that justifies putting in a little bit. You can't put in 2 weeks of fucking research for 2 days. You know, well, you can if you're really, really dedicated to becoming an analyst, right? Like if that's your only hope and like goal in life. But you know, I have other things I'm doing. It's not the only thing I'm doing, so I can't justify putting in a week and a half of fucking straight research for it. Yeah. So I was admittedly a little bit less prepared as to how, what teams I was into. And unfortunately, a decent amount of what happened there is the teams that I was like really well versed in were like teams that we weren't watching, or teams that like, the things I was looking for. Like I got kind of fucked in terms of like what I was expecting, or what I was like very knowledgeable about didn't happen to be what was happening. And it kind of just put me in this real, like, unfortunately uncomfortable fucking position, where I wasn't as prepared as I would have hoped. So I think I did a much better job in the first one, but yeah, there is a little bit like, there is a little bit of, it's not my normal atmosphere, right? And as well, your host, like, part of the problem is that the host is leading you into things, and I didn't communicate well enough with the host what I wanted to talk about and how I wanted to talk about it.
Yeah.
So then it becomes this part where, someone might lead you into a statement, and I don't want to make Freya, I think it was on the second desk, and Frankie on the first one, I don't want to make them necessarily look overly dumb, although that is sometimes like an intentional thing they'll do. I don't want to just like shit down someone's throat and be like, no, like I was thinking this, like, nope, totally wrong. Like, I don't want to be a dick. And so
I do try to hit you with those layups, by the way, sometimes. So you can,
well,
I guess you haven't shied away from making me look like an idiot.
Yeah, well, here it's a little bit more like casual, and we know each other a little bit more, especially with someone that you don't know quite as well. You don't want to, especially on a bigger broadcast. You don't want to make them look dumb. It's just, it feels rude, and it takes a little bit of time. Like, I was expecting, if you were to ask me how hard an analyst desk segment is, I would have said it's not that hard. And then I went on one, and there are series where you have 50 things to talk about, and you can only talk about 3. Yep. And you have series where there's not a lot to talk about, and you have to talk about 3. Like, you have to find things to talk about when there's not much to talk about, and things to talk about when you have to boil it down. And I think I did a kind of poor job of building a narrative and going with it, where usually my negative takes would be come out at specific times. And I think I just like didn't necessarily have time to get past the roll-ins, because it's kind of formulaic. It's like, roll it in, ask a question, next analyst, fucking next up, next question, and then you're off. It's a little bit tough to actually roll it like that. It's a lot harder than anyone would expect. Like, I promise you, if you look at an analyst desk, just look at an analyst desk for a minute and ask yourself, how would I roll in on these? Like, how would I take this and actually turn it into a point?
It's definitely more hard than it looks, especially from the outside. I'll say that much, because I may not have thought too heavily about casting or whatever before I started doing it. But after I was like, oh, wait, you actually have to talk for like 30 whole rounds. Like, the whole
that
time.
Was easy for me.
Fair enough. Man. I will say my experience doing Let's Plays to 2 viewers did sometimes help with that, because you have to be very like flowing and free form. You can't be scripted whatsoever. So once I got my sort of casting legs, I was able to just riff off of that shit, which probably helps with talk shows as well. So how it is. I will say as well, one of the things that I wanted to close on as we wind the show down a bit, one of the things that I really want to spend some time looking at is this new map in the pool. So I know you've been intimately familiar with this new map, Vu, because you and
I'm getting tilted with this new map, because fucking every time I play it, people have no clue how to play it. If you just look at the map, you can tell generally how it's going to be played. Sure. And people are like fucking rolling 2A. I ran into a game where I was playing 2-1-2 and I was trying to hold mid solo. What the fuck? Like, just look at the map for 2 seconds. You're not fucking soloing mid with 2 players pushed up A tunnels or whatever. I can never remember the fucking callouts. I really got to learn the callouts. But like, they're pushed up in the
2 hallways, presumably, right? That leads out to
it's the one I would naturally call tunnels, because it's kind of like B tunnels on Dust 2 on the A side.
Okay.
Yeah, like pushed up A, right?
Sure.
And people are playing 2 people in there, and it's like, dude, just like fucking look at the map, and you can tell that this is not how you play the fucking map. You don't play it like this. And I'm like trying to solo mid, and then the B players are playing back on site. And so they just run through B to middle and fucking shoot at me. And it's like, in what universe does this seem like a reasonable way to play the map? Like, it's absolutely ridiculous that like it's really fucking annoying. People have no clue what they're fucking doing. No clue what they're doing. And it's
To
It's
their
like
credit,
laziness,
how
dude.
intuitive do you really think the layout is? Because it's a 3-lane map, but there's just a
the
couple
first time I looked at the fucking map, I
Okay.
went around the map. I could tell you it was a 1-3-1 or a 2B, 2 mid, 1A. I could
Sure.
tell you immediately. It's
And
just
I
so
agree
obvious.
with that, yeah. Sure.
It's just so obvious. It's like you can play retake on B, so you could potentially play 1-3-1. I think retake on B will be I think B is going to be like Vertigo A, because where the fuck do you plant? You can molly the whole plant zone and nade stack the whole plant zone. Where the fuck do you plant? On A or on B on Ancient? Or A. If you don't have fucking donut room, if you don't have donut room, you're just hoping you don't get spammed. And that is the worst map design you can imagine. Saying, hey, by the way, I'm gonna plant. Please don't spam the right angle, otherwise I'm dead. Like, that is such a fucking anti-fun way to balance a map.
It's anti-design, yeah, sure.
It's nobody is going to enjoy that. And you can nade stack the whole, if you nade stack the middle of the A plant zone, on the Ancient A, you do like 30 damage to all 4 corners that you can plant on. And nobody's planting on a corner for the most part. You can just fucking double nade stack the whole plant zone, basically. You can just, and you'll either kill the guy or do a shit ton of damage, and then the guy donut is just gonna fucking spam him with 1 bullet and get the kill. It's real. The plant zones need to be fucking jiggered. They need to be rejiggered. Okay, they're completely fucked. The way the map is gonna play, in my opinion, you're gonna rotate between 1-3-1. Is it 1-3-1?
I think 2 people will be in that fucking construction cubby. I think that'll be the first thing you'll see as an adaptation.
When
if you're not feeling your aim and you don't want to go for the contest deep B, you're probably going to be sitting 2 people inside that little cubby to peek out mid, right?
I think that lane on B is going to be the biggest deal. I think it's almost going to be like long A on Dust 2. Because if you control that, there's nothing the T's can do.
Yes.
They're completely fucked. They can't take mid. They can't take B.
They can't even.
What are they going to go?
They can't
A?
even pincer B. Yeah.
Yeah, they can't pincer A, and you need donut to really take A because of where the plant zone is. You can't just take A without donut, or you're gonna get spammed and fucked, right? Like you can't do anything without that lane. So I think there's gonna be a decent balance where some setups are gonna go for that, for control of that, and then other setups, because the CTs don't need that. It's the Ts that need it. And there'll be some setups where you give that up and you just play back, and you can even play retake on B if you want. Like you can do whatever.
Throw the fucking nades. Spam them through the walls. Vertigo 2.0. It's flat, but it sucks just as much as the original Vertigo.
I think the map will be good. I think it'll be fun.
You can't do that to me. You can't just sit here for like 10 minutes rattling off, I fucking hate this map, and I hate everybody who plays on this map.
No, I hate everyone who plays it. I think the map is clunky. If the bomb sites are reworked, I think if both bomb sites are made bigger and pushed back, I think it'll be a workable. Imagine the A bomb site is where that big box is on A. It'll be really easy to plant, but if you plant on that big box and you just the tunnels get smoked off, you're just gonna get fucking wrecked. Like, you're just gonna get smoked off and lose, right? The retake is gonna be trivial. Right, so I feel like the bomb plant. I feel like it would be interesting to see it at the big box. You know the box I'm talking about, I'm assuming.
Yeah, what you're just suggesting is that they make the A bomb site even more like Dust 2B site, and then if they took
you're never retaking Dust 2B.
Sure,
but you would immediately retake this.
Listen, they've somehow managed to make a site that is as hard to take as Dust 2B site is, but not nearly as hard to retake. They've done it.
I feel like so. I think the tunnels are like ramp on Nuke, where like you're gonna have a player there on CTs. Well, maybe it's not like ramp on Nuke. I think you're gonna basically have a 1v1 in there a lot.
Sure.
Where the CTs are gonna get a guy in there in some dumb off angle in a corner. Okay, they're gonna get a guy.
Did you
in
like
there.
the patch that let you self boost up to that platform I didn't even know existed outside of tunnel? By the way, that's a real fucking thing. I can't.
Oh, the like close right when you come out T side.
Yeah, it's like an elevated angle. It's almost.
You can self boost.
Yeah, you can self boost on.
Oh, I didn't know you could.
They
self
updated
boost.
it recently, so they made it.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know you could self boost.
It makes it even easier to 1A in that situation.
The CTs are just gonna play 1A, and they're just gonna hope that the guy can go into tunnels, get a kill, and back up. I think that's gonna be the fucking goal. Or he'll just there's so many angles you have to clear. But the thing is, for the T's, like the CTs can molly it off at the start. So they can delay for long enough, because most of what the T's have to do is very quick. I think the timings are really important on the map. So the T's are going to have to get really pushed up really quickly, which means if you delay behind a molly and a smoke thrown at A, they're going to know you're going A. So you basically need like one guy there, probably most rounds, that just like you hope that he can win his duel. And if he wins his duel, then you win the round. It's almost like sometimes you get fucking duels on like train on ladder, which by the way, people complain about Ancient. Like they talk about all these things on Ancient. Ladder on train is the most fucking cancer place you can possibly imagine on any map in any scenario. Just imagine ladder on train came in on a new map and you're like, what the fuck? Like you can't you double molly this area, or do you just take an aim duel where you're dropping down into the fight? What are you supposed to do in this spot?
Dude, you throw nades above ladder to blind people in main, and then you just walk Olaf, obviously.
Yeah, it's just like, it's really, ladder on train is my best example of a spot that if it was brought into the map pool today, everyone would complain so unbelievably hard about this shitty fucking angle, because it is everything wrong with angles that everyone complains about on every new map, but it's there and people accept it. Like, and by the way, a ladder on train is kind of why, like, I think train has been problematic, because you basically on CT side, you have a guy go ladder, and if he's good and he holds ladder, really tough for the T's to do anything, and if he's bad, it's really tough for the CTs to do anything. Like,
it is a pivotal spot, sure.
It is a spot where you send a player and you hope he dodges flashes, and you hope he dodges nades, and you hope he dodges mollies, and you hope he shoots them in the face when they drop down. That's what that spot is. Like, that's really what the vibe of that spot is: dodge nades and shoot better. It really is. So I hate that spot. I really do, but I like the map. Personally, like, I like train.
Yeah, well, that was my next question: is why has train been removed? And don't cite statistics. Try to make a real case where Valve can justify removing the map based on quality.
Statistics. Okay. No, I mean, like,
there's nothing else.
What do you want me to say? Like, it's the argument is the statistics. Like, you can't say other than the statistics, which are the main argument. Then the
problem is there is no argument because Valve doesn't communicate. So. We have no understanding. We just know it was removed, and now we've got to live in this reality where one of the best maps in the pool got removed.
It has to be stats. Valve is always based off stats. It's got to be the stats. The only reason they wouldn't remove it is the stats, which is problematic because everyone's talking about, like, this is not that big of a deal, and everyone's talking about how, well, they would never remove Overpass. It's one of the best maps. It's one of the best made maps. Overpass is like the next map to go if you go by the stats that remove train. Like, if you go by the stats that require train to be removed, Overpass is next on the fucking chopping block. So
and obviously Vertigo would actually have been first, but Vertigo is never going to get removed because Valve can't admit they made a mistake. So
yeah, Vertigo really should be gone. It really should be. But
sorry,
here we are. Here we are in reality, unfortunately.
Yeah. Hey, maybe you can go to the reality where NipCS tweeted that tweet, and you can find a way to change it out, and hopefully, like, in that reality, Vertigo is removed. And instead of Ancient, it was the
reality that Nip wants to be in is the one where Ancient is. Sorry, I just turned down my mic randomly.
It's okay. Should be back. You're enormous.
Roughly.
Yeah, that's fine.
Roughly the same.
Good enough.
So the reality that we want to be in is, if you're Nip, that is the reality where the third map of every major is randomized, and it's randomly Ancient, and then we can get Nip another major. That's how we get Nip to get a second major. Is right there. You just randomize the third map. Just to clue you guys in, this is how Nip won their first major, because Cobble was the third map of every the third map of every series.
Crazy.
In case anyone was not around at that moment.
Maybe NIP just pressured the tournament organizer to replay the randomizer until it got to a map that was favorable.
Well, apparently Nip is the only other team that has benefited from a match being replayed twice.
There you go. What was the first time?
They're the only one once, but also a second time, because of the replay against Fnatic when the I don't know this from first-hand accounts, so please take this with a grain of salt.
Okay.
But this is what other people have said. This is what I've heard 2 times. People have said this MR3, MR5 thing. Apparently, it was MR5 when it was supposed to be MR3, or it was MR3 when it was supposed to be MR5. Fnatic won the OT.
Yeah,
okay. Fnatic won the OT. Nip disputed, so they replayed the OT, and then Fnatic won again, and that's when the no handshake won thing happened where everyone hated JW for years, but without not understanding any of the context behind the fucking no handshake. The only thing about that is, by the way, the only thing about that is the reason that replay makes more sense is because it doesn't matter who won. If either team won, there could have been a replay. Okay, so while it is kind of bullshit, and I think probably it should stand, it has more validity to being a replay than a match where if Nip had won, the result would have stood. Okay,
Yes,
just understand this, because if Nip had won, Fnatic could have also disputed and had it replayed. It is fair in both directions. I think it's still unfair. Probably it should never be replayed because you played it with these rules.
Yeah.
Again, you might have given up strats. When you're in a game, when you're in a live game and you go from regulation to OT, there's a reason OT often ends 1916. There's a reason that happens. Okay. Momentum, although it shouldn't be a thing, it is kind of a thing based on the way people play and the way calling works. It is actively a thing in CS for sure in the pro scene. Mind games are a big fucking thing, and when you get that deep in a game, you're really calling like fucking 3D chess moves because you've seen what they've done and they've seen what you've done. And sometimes, like, even calling a pause, even sometimes I've like when I'm IGLing, sometimes I don't call pauses because when you pause, they rethink what they're already thinking, and they're like, they've got a chance to think. When you think you've got the solution, you don't want to give them a chance to try and theory craft what your solution is. You know, you just want to come at them. Right, so it's a whole different universe. That shouldn't have been replayed either if it was just an MR3 MR5 thing, but it's more reasonable. Okay, it's more reasonable at least.
One of the things that I have noticed about reasonable replays and reasonable changes in history,
Valorant doesn't have them. Ha ha!
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Got him.
One more thing that we've got that your game doesn't have. Another thing that we've got that your game doesn't have. I can't say it's a developer that gives a shit, but at least they're not Riot Games. So as far as I know, nobody at Valve has been convicted of sexual misconduct. There you go. That's we win. We win, boys. Pack it up. That's it. We're going home. I will say before we go home, I wanted to mention about Ancient and Train and all this other shit because that was our original topic. As Train was not a map that really should have been removed, in my opinion. I think it was fine. Statistics bear out that it's not the most popular. Who cares? Popularity doesn't mean anything. I mean, look at this podcast. We're not the most popular podcast, but we're probably one of the best. So there you go. There you go. That's how you know. Popularity doesn't mean everything. Size doesn't mean everything. So yeah. Train probably shouldn't have been removed. If they wanted to change something about Train, they could have done. I think they could have changed enough things about Train to make it better, to actually improve the map without taking it out of the map pool and completely rehauling it the way that they have historically for some other maps. The other thing that I wanted to touch on is specifically the whole historic thing. Everybody and their fucking mother was making this argument on Twitter and everywhere else that I looked, where, oh, well, Valve improved Overpass eventually, so they should be able to do this with Ancient too. Where the fuck are you guys now? Like, Vertigo has been in the game for 2 years and it's not improved at all. I mean, maybe it's actually
that's a vertical map problem. I'm just gonna my argument. That's a vertical map problem. It's vertical maps are extremely hard to balance correctly.
It's a giant. It is a square on a square on a square, and the problem is that they don't even bother thinking literally outside the box here, where they could have actually had something interesting that ties in with the theme, where you maybe take an elevator, or you have something interactive, or you jump on this fucking crane and take a ladder, or some shit. Like, could have done something to actually make it more interesting, and then give Ts more options, CTs more options, whatever. But of course, they decided not to do that. Anyway, the thing with Ancient is I have no faith in Valve to improve it. The improvements that they made seem to make it even more CT-sided than it already is, which is the self-boost onto that platform thing, and so on and so forth. I don't think that that's likely to change anytime soon. I also don't think that it's going to matter if they're using fucking matchmaking statistics, because as you know, Vu, matchmaking is not a valid predictor of what will happen at a reasonable professional level. Because in matchmaking, your CTs don't actually push any of their advantages, and then you get shot mid by holding it solo. Whereas in team play, you're never going to be in that position. So I don't know what's going on with Valve, but as you said earlier, they like stats, and stats say that the Krieg only eclipsed the AK-47 in matchmaking one time, and then they nerfed it.
Well, I don't think they're only looking at matchmaking. I think they're also looking at tournaments. When it eclipsed the AK in tournaments, that's when it got nerfed. And Train, I don't think it's the least played in matchmaking. I think it's actually one of the more played ones. And in the general pro scene, it wasn't that unplayed. It's just like when you look at the top 30 teams and the top 20, top 10, that's where it's unplayed. So I think they are looking at the pro scene. but you know what changes they're going to make.
Sure.
I have some faith, honestly. I think Vertigo, the problem with Vertigo is that Valve tried to apply their normal logic, whereas they put in a map that they think isn't ready, but they think will get better, and then they try and fix it. The problem I think with Vertigo is that Vertigo is the problem comes down to the overarching design of the map, and just adjusting one bomb site isn't going to really fucking change all that much. You would have to really remake the whole map. Ancient, I don't think it's in that position. I think Ancient is a map that has the makings of a potentially good map. I'm not a map designer, but from what I can tell, I think it could be a good map. I've kind of enjoyed playing. I've kind of enjoyed playing it. It just needs fixes.
What do you think of the fact that it's yet another 3-lane map, and now we have a map pool where 3 out of 7 maps are 3-lane maps?
That's true.
We have
yeah, I mean
Mirage
that's
and
the
Dust 2
best
that play
argument.
very
That's the best
similarly to
argument
each other.
against it. That 3-lane maps are a little bit overused, and that they do become solved over time. I think there's enough play with that lane. Because like my opinion is based on this lane being a highly contested area, the lane outside of B, outside of the doors at B, right? I think that lane being highly contested will make it kind of unique in that, like, I think things will adjust. It might not be solved quite the same way, but hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the best argument against it, I think.
We'll have to see what Valve decide to do.
Here's the one thing I wanted to address that I forgot to address was the Flashpoint 16K scenario.
Okay, here we go. The follow-up.
This is my theory is that the fact that they didn't fucking mention anything about it, I don't know. It's hard to say. I get the impression that they probably were, like, basically my impression is that they put it in their rule book and Valve didn't read didn't TLDR their rule book, didn't read the overtime rules, and then when they found out that the overtime rules were wrong, they made them change it. And that would also explain to some extent why there was a mid-tournament change in the other rules that they had, right? Because that would mean they were going, well, we got to change the OT rules to 10K anyways. Why don't we also change the other part? Why don't we make this a fucking
more explicit,
2-for-1, right? Like, why don't we fix both things if Valve is already making us change the OT rules? That would make a lot of sense to me as well.
I want to connect this point as well to something that we can talk about.
Which also, by the way, everyone's shitting on Flashpoint for making a mid-tournament rule change. It's possible Valve forced, if Valve okayed 16K, I guarantee you they forced them to change it. 100% guaranteed they forced them to change it. Okay, which means that it wasn't their fault that there's a rule change. So at the end of the day, Flashpoint could literally have been the most hard done by fucking tournament organizer of all time for shit, possibly not guaranteed, but that I think there's a high chance that a lot of this shit was completely out of their hands.
Don't you feel like it's absolutely criminal that there's no official communication about the qualification stage to a world championship in the game, and that Valve is directly running in some ways, or at least influencing, we'll say? Like, don't you think it's fucking ridiculous that we have to sit here and speculate about shit like replaying and tournament rules and like whether or not Valve okayed something with full knowledge?
Here's the other thing where everyone's like, well, Valve agreed. Valve came out with their stance and they said that it should be replayed. No, motherfucker. They did not. Valve did not come out and say it should be replayed. They did the standard Valve, as far as we know, okay? Because I don't have any more information than you have. And the information that everyone has is that Valve said what they always say, which is we stand with her. I mean, the tournament organizer. We stand with the tournament organizer, and their ruling stands. That's what they said.
Yep.
Okay. They didn't say anything. They just said Valve agreed with Flashpoint. They didn't say that Valve said Flashpoint was right. They didn't say that Valve said, fuck you. We want Nip in the finals. Like, they didn't say any of that shit. It just said that Valve, I don't know what,
they did not
whatever
disagree
it said.
with Flashpoint's
They
ruling.
did. All they did was they didn't disagree. Exactly. All they did was they didn't disagree. Okay. So they did not come out with the same. They did not come out that way that people are fucking pretending that they came out as to support their fucking narrative. It was that information to me says what they said, what they always say, which is, did Flashpoint say something? Then that's what we said. Like, did Flashpoint say it? If yes, that's what we think. Like, that's really all it fucking was. That it was nothing fucking more than that people are trying to fucking make it into.
I just think that this whole RMR qualification to major is a joke, and it's made even more of a joke by some of the broadcasts that I've seen in other stuff.
There's one other thing I wanted to add.
Go.
Sorry, you can finish your thing if you want.
I will say it's additionally a joke when you have a situation where you are qualifying to the major in part on a map that is being removed before the major.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I made this tweet, and Professor actually really seemed to disagree with me. He had a decent point. I'll admit he had a decent point. But I'll finish this one thing where I wanted to say that the reason I cut you off is because I forgot. I meant to say it after the last thing I said, and I forgot, and then I remembered, and now I forgot again.
Well, the last point was.
Oh yeah. Okay. The CSPPA. Okay, yes, the CSPPA came out about this.
What?
It genuinely seemed like the CSPPA came out after the decision was made, specifically because they no longer had any impact and wanted to make a statement, to basically say, hey, by the way, we exist. It genuinely did feel like that. I don't know if that was the intent, but they did say that they communicated with Flashpoint with what their opinion was that the ruling should be. Now here's the thing. People are saying Flashpoint should have been harder, should have gone harder on this. Maybe they should boycott the tournament unless they do what they're... the exact ruling... The thing is, this is kind of like the NHLPA. I'm assuming most unions, like sports unions, do this, but I know the NHLPA because I watch the NHL. They will they'll appeal any fucking suspension from the league for a player that's suspended for a dirty hit on another player, for doing like a dirty play on another player. Not because the reason they do that is because, they both they support both players, the player injured and the player doing the injuring, to get their correct, to get the ruling correct. Okay. They support both sides. So it's a little bit complicated for the CSPPA to come out and say, well, we don't think NIP should have gotten the replay. So what we're going to do is we're going to boycott this tournament with all of our teams. It gets a little bit awkward there, I think the CSPPA, the best they can do is they can support the case for both teams, and make sure the rules are followed correctly. And what they need to do is they need to have influence on the rules, so the rules are the way that they believe is fair and that the players believe is the most fair. So I don't think the CSPPA necessarily should have done anything on this. Okay.
The agency. Conflict of interest. They get the money from TOs. Oh shit, I'm so sick.
I don't think they necessarily should have done anything on this. Even though it wouldn't have surprised me. The thing is, if they had done anything on this, it would have felt more like, well, the Flashpoint not paying them. Yep. It would it becomes complicated.
What do you think of Scoots?
They had a good point.
That they owe players. They owe money to players.
This is. Well, I don't even want to get into that. That's this whole rabbit. That's this whole own fucking.
Seems like just a bold-faced lie. It seems like it's the worst wording of all time.
I don't think he's lying. I think he sees it that way. But sure. It's read the room type of thing. Yeah, I feel like. Sure. But anyways, I think the CSPPA had the most reasonable solution, which was to put NIP in the lower bracket, admit that there was a problem that was on Flashpoint's end, and give NIP RMR points to make up for it. I think that was the most reasonable solution, in my opinion. Because NIP did get fucked, and nobody's going to say that if the rematch wasn't played, that NIP didn't get fucked over. They absolutely did. I just think, it's just that the replay is fucking Anonymo 2 times harder than it fucked NIP in the first place. Okay? I think giving them RMR points would have been the solution. I'm going to take a wild guess and say Valve was not cool with that. And that's why that didn't happen, because it really would have been the fucking most obvious solution.
I wonder if if the idea was even floated. I wonder.
It might not have even been floated to Valve, but I don't think, maybe someone was like, yeah, Valve's not going to sit with that. We already know the answer
before even getting in. Yeah.
Yeah. Now about the map pool, Professor had a decent point in that he was saying, well, to be fair, the first event doesn't matter for that much. The points scale up pretty heavily, where the first event is only going to be
on land, basically, to have as many points.
Yeah, I think the first event is going to be 20% of the points you get from the 3 events that are RMR events, right? Or it might even be 15% or something, right? So it's not that much, which I don't think is the greatest excuse, because what you're saying is it is a problem, but it's
mitigated
not
by
that likely.
80%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a problem, but luckily this event means nothing comparatively. Like I that's not like that's just a cop out, right? The problem is that like you couldn't, with what happened, with exactly how it went down, that Ancient was added when it was added, this was the best solution, in my opinion. I think this was the best solution because the major is so far away. You can't add Ancient and then be like, well, we got a major in 6 months. We're not playing the map that we added 6 months. Like, really, like, I think this is the best solution because but like the root of the problem is why the fuck was Ancient added now?
Yep.
Why wasn't it added after the major or 6 months ago? Why did it have to be added when it was added? That's the root of the problem here. With the timing that it was added, I think playing the first RMR without Ancient and playing the second with it, I think is reasonable.
Okay. Well, I will say that I understand the RMR does mean less right now because it's online, because it's so far away. But I still think it's ridiculous that teams that rely on Train, maybe even they don't even play Train that much, but they rely on it being banned, like Virtus Pro, who needed to get banned so that they can get into the deep, like mid section of their map pool. There's an obvious example. Like, you can't ask teams to be playing for RMR points, even if they are less valued than the RMR points they'll be playing for later, and say that this has a stake in your qualification to the major or in what placing and seeding you go into or whatever. You can't have that be the case. And then also say, by the way, don't bother practicing on one of the maps that maybe is really important to you because it's being removed. Start practicing on this other map that you can't see any meaningful progress on because it's not in any of these tournaments yet. Start practicing on that now because you want to be able to practice on it now because you need to have some sort of understanding of it in case it does get picked against you in some of the future events you'll go into. So
yeah, it is pretty bullshit. But I mean, like, honestly, what's the solution with the timing that Ancient was added?
Sure.
What is the solution if Valve is saying it's going to be played at the major?
Yeah, this is why I just don't like. So one of the problem is you brought this actually up in an indirect way when you talked about how like, well, Valve said that like they support Flashpoint or they support NIP or when they didn't really say that, they just didn't disagree publicly or whatever. The fact that people would even use that as an excuse and say that that means everything's okay is like a symptom of this disease that a lot of esports companies have or esports fans have, where they somehow associate the word of the developer as the word of fucking God passed on through some prophet with some burning bush in the background, because they don't realize that developers are people too. They're just like us. They're just humans. Like, I'm a fucking developer. I don't think I know everything about a game that I might be working on. I don't think I know better than the players do every single other time. I also don't think I know less necessarily, but there's going to be different specialities. They're going to know a lot differently than I do. So naturally speaking, you want to get more signal. You want to get more understanding of like what the different areas are, where are your blind spots, what's going on there. You got to think about that before you start to make some decisions. And Valve seems to not think about it. And I say seems to with so much strain because in addition to being mildly dehydrated, I'm just so fucking fed up with the fact that Valve does not communicate any of their decisions. They've made a change that directly impacts the professional circuit of the game, including the tournaments that they are co-signing and sponsoring some of the splash money for, right? The prize money. The fact that they still have not communicated and said, here's what we're doing, here's when it takes into effect. We don't even know which tournaments in the RMR cycle are actually going to have Ancient. They still haven't confirmed this, dude. Like, this is crazy shit. It's been like almost it's 2 weeks or something since the map was added, and we still don't know what the fuck is going on and how it affects the pro scene. And people want to say that, well, you just don't like change. You don't like, no, I don't like shit maps being added to the pool like 6 months before a world championship. By the way, the first one we've had in 2 years because of a pandemic. Like, this is fucked up. This is actually ridiculous behavior. And the fact that everybody's like, well, Valve said, okay, let's do it. Like, I understand you got to live within the reality you have and you got to play with the cards that you're dealt. But at some point, you got to look at the guy who's dealing you these cards and punch him in the fucking head. That's all I'm saying. In a video, allegedly, virtually. Anyway, that's my rant. I don't know if you have anything else to say before we sign off.
No, I'm happy.
There you go. All right. Well, I'm happy too, despite what I just said. And let's be back in a week or so for another episode of ELO Heaven, where there will probably be a Patreon and some fancier graphics by that time. Stay tuned. Bye.